well, so not to be underestimated there as we are into the draft. For Jordan to start things off, Aurora is banned, and we've got the Ashe taken away. Ezreal going to be banned away from Deft as well. A good idea. And there's the Jace, of course, you know, the base damage buff. And Zeus' performances on the champion in general, a good idea to ban that one away. But there are a lot of things that are still up and available, Wolf. I'm getting a little nervous.
Sejuani is the big one that sticks out, that is still up, even with the Ashe banned.
What about the flamethrower Yordle guy?
He is probably going to be banned in this third and final spot. Sejuani is actually banned by KT Rolster, so that does open up that Rumble ban. Pretty self-explanatory here. And we might just see the Vi first pick for Pyosik. Could also be Maokai. I think this is looking like a Pyosik first pick angle. With the Ezreal gone, the Corki is gone. The Rumble, of course, is taken away. So the Renekton also left up, and Perfect has had some really good performances on this pick. So they're going to prioritize that higher, but this means Owner now gets his pick of the litter, and Faker could, of course, wait and see what BDD is going to be playing. Could look for counter pick. If he wants to get the Azir, maybe now's the time.
I've got like Monte Cristo in the back of my head right now, Wolf, saying like, why are they first picking Renekton? And I love that it's KT Rolster as well. Hope you're doing okay there, Monty. Okay, let's see what the answer is going to be.
It's the
Shuriman theme, and I like this so much. The fact that Faker can go back to one of his all-time comfort picks and deny it from BDD at the same time is brilliant.
And this is T1 leaning into that narrative we've had over the last 2 weeks of play what works for you, play what you're good at, play your style. And with the Corki ban, this one becomes pretty self-explanatory. Now the cannon to come through here, a ranged pick here into the Renekton, can keep him at arm's length. The Vi Talia. As soon as the Azir was locked in, you and I both knew that's the exact angle we'd be seeing with KT. So much single target here with the Renekton. You've got the Vi setup with the Talia shoves. And yes, the cannon is great for teamfights, so is the Azir. But this is kind of KT's bread and butter here, and if we see any mistakes, any errors from T1, it's so easy to punish.
We need Lee Sin. That's what we need. I need Owner's Lee Sin. I need it locked in right now. That's not it. That's Poppy. Well, I mean, it's still pretty valuable, but I just felt like it was the time, Wolf. It was the time. We needed Owner's Lee Sin.
Well, it's going to be Owner's Poppy, and he's pretty good at that pick as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And
he's still good at that.
He has been incredible with his early game pathing with this pick. Really strong into this composition. So I do like this, as taking away the Senna, I think, is wise as well, considering the ability for Talia to roam can be very problematic when trying to shut down the Senna. Her ultimate is global as well, so BED can ult in and then Senna can shut somebody down. Kalista ban, though, makes it look like we are still heading to a scaling pick here in the bottom lane for Deft.
I find it interesting that the Senna was banned on T1's side. I actually felt like Senna could have kind of fit into the composition, although I guess it would lean it very late game focused. Still curious. Also gives Poppy some flex angles as well, in theory. Kalista also going to be trying to deny that, as Leona going to be taken away from Beryl. He does have a skin on that champion, does make a little bit of sense.
See if they want to ban... I mean, it'd be really bizarre, but they could even ban like Xayah here. It's one of the times when Xayah is relatively viable because she has a great setup in this comp, and the single target blow up is actually pretty easy for her to get out. If she dodges the first part, then she can avoid the rest as well. As the Alistar will get banned. The Misfortune was the other option I was thinking about, is they took the Alistar away from Keria, but this does allow Guma to just kind of slide in with a very strong laning pick that has insane follow-up to the Cannon ultimate, to the Azir ultimate. And
I'm
not learning the lesson. I don't know if we're learning the lesson.
It does mean you can, you can dodge the Poppy ult,
And the first part of the Cannon ult, but then the rest of it still gets you.
And then you come down again, and then you get swept into the enemy team.
If Guma plays Xayah here, he avoids the shove or the Vi, and then he backs up, and then there's no follow-up, right? And that's why I was like, oh, it's kind of okay in this situation. It does not feel as okay on the KT side, but the Feathers can be a good follow-up, and if you're the one who's constantly setting up the engages with the Vi, Talia, with the Renekton engage, and you're ahead, it doesn't matter. It still works. You know, you're going to close that gap. The low range isn't going to be an issue. There's so much insane keep away and turn here in T1's composition. They've got the strong early game Poppy here, the Cannon ultimate, the Azir ultimate, the Misfortune follow-up, and the ability for Rel to just come back in and say, oh, you almost picked someone, or you did pick someone, but you used everything for it, and we win the 4v5 because we have so much setup and so much lockdown. That's my biggest concern here. I like the start of the draft for KT, but I think at the end, I definitely have to lean T1.
Yeah, and I think that I'm feeling a little bit of whiplash, right, from the Bro Series where the Xayah was picked and it just wasn't the angle. This time I think it's less egregious only because T1 have much less range, right? They don't have a poke angle in this composition, and they are very much like, we're going to front load our damage, we're going to go for the Wombo combo, and Featherstorm is very, very good into that. There are still a whole bunch of those issues that we already listed. Deft is going to have to play very, very well, but I think he will be able to auto-attack at least in this composition.
I think the biggest factor of how this early game is going to go is going to be Pyosik versus Owner. You know, Pyosik's had Owner's number in some very important matches in the past.
Yeah.
Back to that World Championship. But the early game here, I think, is where KT really need to get the ball rolling. If they can get ahead, I feel like the Xayah pick absolutely can work out. The Renekton will have a little bit more longevity. But if it's an even game state early on, the Azir gets to scale, you've got the MF setup, I think T1 win out every time.
Yeah, it's looking like we're back to some T1 drafts that look like they suit them, and that is absolutely fantastic. Let's dive onto the Rift for game number 1 of the Telecom War. Oh, it is a full house here at Lol Park for the Telecom War. And already we have Vision turned off, and Keria is going to have to flash very early on. Well, you can see he looks like he's calmly walking away. I would have had a small heart attack.
At least he reacts very quickly there. Will lose his flash, so definitely a net negative, as that will really weaken.
Nope. Hex Flash activation before 1 minute. That is Keria absolutely
He already used
winning.
it. He used it to go over the wall. Look at him. Got the value.
See? Then crashes back over again. Look at that ward. Gorgeous.
Hex Flash. He would have never flashed that wall with regular Flash, but with Hex Flash, it's like, oh, totally worth it.
I know, and it feels like you're allowed to do it, you know? Feels like a party foul. I do it every game. You know, I flash out a fountain to get to that Pixel Brush a little bit earlier, as Beryl is going to walk over some Vision. Gumushi lying in wait here. We'll have Keria coming down to join him pretty early. Might be just a little tussle at level 1.
Could be MF going to get that big first auto, and if she could set up the press the attack, feels nice. But Keria is hiding in the brush.
Oh, shout out to Swarm, by the way, that Misfortune skin.
Yeah.
Very cool stuff. I am very much looking forward to going and playing more of it this evening. And I'm very proud of myself for making it to work on time today.
Good job.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. It is often a struggle for me. I am not the most punctual man.
You know, people say half of life is showing up. Then like a fourth of life is like showing up on time.
I'd give it a 6. I want to give it a 6. That helps me. It's all right. You can see, double up value there onto Beryl, as Deft and Beryl are going to have to concede the level 2.
Hex Flash value.
Keria just making sure he makes use of the button. You love to see it.
So in the top side of the map, we do see the Kennen starting to get some small advantages there. Owner is pathing towards this top lane, but Perfect is playing very respectfully here.
Yeah, and Owner looks like he's going to go in for a bit of an invade. We'll see whether he can actually secure a blue buff, because that could really put Pyosik behind.
Yeah.
Just get some vision down.
Could definitely get it. I mean, Pyosik's coming over here, clears Wolves. There's a ward here. We'll see Pyosik's timing. You get the Gromp and then come for a steal. It'd be nice, but Pyosik knows. He knows he's on it.
Yeah, and Owner is just going to walk away. Ward goes over. Perfect moving on in now. Understands the value of protecting the jungle. I don't think Owner knows that a ward went into that brush there either. As we're going to just do the same thing. It's a bit of a do-si-do.
But the winner of this is Zeus, who's pulling the Renekton, you know, pushing the wave in is, okay, here we go.
Yeah, Pyosik fighting against Owner here, who does manage to steal this one away. There's a lightning rush over. The stun comes out immediately, though, from Perfect, and Pyosik going to get smashed into the ground. The flash out from Owner as well, as now Zeus is in an extraordinarily uncomfortable position. Seismic Shove is going to miss, and oh my goodness, is it going to work? The turret! Oh, he was almost out of there.
Almost out of there, but it is going to be a 1-for-1 in the end. As we just come down here to see a little bit of a crash down, but this is going to be too impactful But yeah, that was really well played by T1. Owner comes over and starts threatening Pyosik, slows down his clear, denies farm from Perfect because Perfect has to constantly come over and babysit the Vi. And this is why Owner is so well known for his early game poppy. His pathing is so frustrating, knows where he's got pressure points on the map. That cannon lane was the pressure point. Now, both top laners flash this after the play. Of course, Pyosik and Owner also did flash. Of course, Owner has the Hex Flash. Pyosik will get his blue buff, but a big win here for the top lane cannon. And had he gotten out, it would have been even bigger. They pick up the first blood as well.
Yeah, really nicely done here by T1. As waves are picked up, though, and things are sort of normalized, it's not like it has really impacted the gold too much, outside of first blood being what T1 were able to pick up. This is a big crash. Pyosik's level 3. And Zeus still only level 4. Owner's going to move around, though, and there's the Vault Breaker to get Pyosik out.
I mean, Owner's
get the crash.
He's wise enough to know this is a strong possibility to follow up there without Cannon having the flash. Perfect having a very long stun with his empowered W. Just wants to come over here. Needs to get his Krugs anyways, but will also shadow the Yordle.
All right, Faker going to take a little bit of a ride across the rocks, but BDD not going to be able to find that shove. That is going to be a big trade win for Faker here in the mid lane. It is going to be a CS advantage for BDD at the moment. And he was also able to roam up, sort of the power of being able to surf on the walls. I don't know about that one, Beryl, but it's going to be a 1v1 between Gumayusi and Deft right now. Not a lot of mana left here for Gumayusi, who does get snared by the Blade Caller. It's a good trade for KT. Early power of the Lovers duo here on the bottom side, with the fact that they do get some of those extra things, is sort of helping out here for Deft and Beryl.
Yeah, I mean, the lack of mana here for Guma isn't going to be that important, as he will be able to just back off here and catch the wave. But luckily did not have to use his barrier. And once again, the top pressure is real. I mean, Perfect is not in the game. He has a kill, but he is losing more and more farm, is completely zoned off. You've got to make this work, Pyosik. 3-6 is going to be tough.
Yep, Slicing Maelstrom is going to be used on the minion wave, and now Perfect just trying to get towards it, wants to get the mana as wants to get the experience. As Owner was tanking this one up, we've got dives everywhere though, as Beryl goes in and straight up whiffs. That's going to be the crash down from Carrier to try and buy some space, and Gumayusi should be falling here somehow. It almost worked, but it is going to be the 1 for 2. And T1 just kind of winning everywhere.
Yeah, this is a disaster for KT Rolster. Pyosik felt so hard forced when he saw Owner topside there to make this dive happen. It's just so difficult to do. The crash down from Carrier was so well played. And if you're trying to, as the bottom lane, and we'll talk about that in a moment when we get to that, but this is of course what happened moments before this, as they're trying to zone Perfect out of this wave. Owner comes in, pushes him into the wall here. And even though the stun isn't perfectly set up here by Owner, it doesn't matter. Zeus gets the stun. It's a big wave, and Perfect can do very little here. Decides to try to go back in. Unfortunately, not a great idea there. And then Beryl engage doesn't go the way he wants. Crash down is great from Carrier, hits the 2-man. Beryl flashes, nearly dies, of course. Deft picks up the turret aggro, or picks up the double up, excuse me, and does go down. And then Pyosik is just all alone. The turret ramps up so fast in this game. Without 6, it's just so hard to make that work. If Beryl hits the knockup, maybe that ends up going a lot better, but unfortunately not to happen. And they lose both sides of the map, now find themselves nearly 2,000 gold behind.
Yeah, and Pyosik was level 4, while Carrier was level 5 in that particular dive. So just showing that things haven't necessarily gone the way that Pyosik really wants. He's now on his Wolf Camp. Doesn't have a whole lot of jungle to clear at this point in time. You can see 1,000 gold lead for Zeus on the top side. An understandable lead for the cannon, but it is red everywhere. And T1 have them right where they want them for now. But it is only 8 minutes into the game. And KT's composition does have some skirmishing and team fighting with it. We'll see whether Pyosik, now with cease and desist on hand, see whether he can actually find something. But Zeus is not looking super gankable here for Pyosik, who's behind.
He has flash and his ultimate, so even with Pyosik ulting him, he can just then turn on the stuns and say no.
Right now, there's a Magnet Storm and a Bullet Time, and Feather Storm does need to be used. In comes Owner, though, as that's Beryl almost surviving. Deft also being able to get a fair bit of damage back, as now BDD throws down the wall. Carrier going to knock him off. That's going to be so much damage onto this Talia, and Seismic Shove is going to miss. BDD has to flash to get out after being the one theoretically engaging.
Unfortunately, you're tripling down now, KT, on trying to stem the bleeding in this bottom lane, and BDD uses his flash, will lose plate gold in mid to Faker as well. There is just no winning on the map here. This is reminiscent of the Genji Pro game we watched, where it was just not any winning lanes, not any advantages, no map plays to be made. Maybe KT will have a similar resurgence in the mid game. If you're a KT fan, you're going to hope so, but BDD does have teleport at least to get back to this lane, but so much money to Faker even, who wasn't even involved in either of the plays, top side or bottom. This is so frustrating if you are a KT fan, but here, I mean, Guma just does so much damage. A carry is set up for this. It's the easiest combo in the book. Meanwhile,
yep, Seismic Shove is going to be utilized here. The Renekton Talia combination, some Shuriman friends are going to be able to take down the little Pikachu guy, as T1 now looking to try and answer, but Beryl pretty slippery. Does have Blast Cone at the ready, and Faker still just taking plates and securing more money for the team. But that is actually a good little bit of ground made by KT with a bit of a gank on Zeus, who was really starting to get out of control. He's still 30 CS ahead.
Yeah, he does have teleport as well. Right now, Perfect is proxying, but a more present issue is what's happening down here in the bottom lane. He is going to commit the teleport. This will be seen by the wave, and Perfect still has his, but they're not going to be able to contest the dragon. He will not be teleporting to the opposite side of the map here post 10 minutes. Just head back to the top lane instead.
Well, Pyosik really wants to kill Gumushi, and he is just going to press the button and go for it. The quickness is down as well. Gumushi's extraordinarily dead. That kill is going to go over to Deft at the same time, and so KT, we mentioned making some ground. This is going to be building upon it.
Oh, absolutely. A win topside, a plate goes over to Perfect. Yes, he's super low eco to where he'd want to be in most matchups. It's tough into the cannon, but he's 40 CS behind. But he picks up a plate, picks up a kill. Bottom side here, the Pyosik gank is a success. They take Guma out of the map. He is significantly down on farm as well, and the gold is very even here between these two, as the stun does connect despite the flash, and then the Seismic Shove comes through. It's just so many different single target setups here for KT to utilize. BDD this time, while he will lose more plate gold, is able to make it done, or make it happen with the roam. And then Pyosik here plays the long con, sets up the ultimate. Nothing Guma can do.
Yep, no response, as we have more grubs going over to T1. Going to be Ona securing, I believe, all 6 of them. Pyosik not interested in fighting for these. I don't even remember where Ona managed to take the last ones, but I think it must have been when some of the shenanigans was going on. So that is going to be T1 with a big advantage as far as getting this push happening around the map, and they already have so much lane control. It's going to mean that if BDD does... Oh, never mind. Speaking of BDD, they do get the shove onto Beryl underneath the turret with the Emperor's Divide. Nicely done there from Faker. Still has to put that ulti on cooldown.
Yeah, big ult from Faker. Will not get a flash from Bell or anything like that, but it's relatively unsuccessful in terms of the gank there. BDD is able to hit the combo, but Faker just says no. And we'll be able to maintain CS parity here. This Beryl should get out of here no problem. The next big fight, I think, is where we're going to start to see the power of this composition for T1, because, okay, we'll see something before that.
Yeah, Perfect is just going to pre-dominance and try and keep himself alive, and it ain't going to work at all. Zeus presses his R button and just zaps him down. As Leandri's doing some work here, and this item advantage is just gigantic.
And, I mean, they're just playing through that PowerPoint topside, and it's really easy for Owner to just be like, I'm a big boppy, and I'm just going to bop you. And yeah, that's kind of how it goes. Like
the boppy poppy.
The boppy poppy. And, I mean, when you play through this top lane, it's really easy. A lot of KT's draft is more premedicated on setting up those single targets, CC into CC into CC, but when you're behind on the plays for a lot of the game, because you have lack of map control, it's harder to make those. And then later on in team fights, we haven't even really seen the power of T1's comp and how easy it is to set up for this misfortune with the Emperor's Divide, with the Maelstrom, and the Rel ultimate as well, the Magnet Storm. So it doesn't necessarily get better from here. KT have traded back some kills, right? They're only about 1,300 gold behind. But this Renekton is just never going to be relevant, it feels. Even with the kill in the plate he picked up earlier, he's just so far behind that Pyosik can't even try to put the fire out. He's just like, sorry, man, it's doomed.
Yeah, I feel like Perfect there kind of knew that he was dead, as Faker's just going to fight Deft here a little bit. Pyosik realizing where his bread's buttered, you know, he's like, this is the lane that I'm going to be successful in. And he's going to park himself here once again. Might be another dive opportunity as Beryl sweeping out some vision. And BDD's coming down as well. should mean that at least the turret is going to be taken. You can see the bottom lane sort of moving back in, but this just leaves Perfect up and available once again. No Dominus this time. Heroic Charge going to come forward. I've seen this movie before. This time it's going to have a different ending, as plates just fell down.
Almost got all.
Be able to get those.
Yeah, should still be able to get the turret here before Def does.
Yeah.
And that is going to be first turret going over to the Kennen, who was able to get a ton of plate gold, 375 plus the kills. He is just so large on that Thunderbolt Pikachu, you know, the namesake of this player, why he always does the Z for Zeus, but also for Kennen in the Thunderbolt, you know, shape that he makes the Z in. You guys know what I'm talking about. I need to explain the Zeus Z, but I'm like trying to. Yeah. I don't want to say this game is over by any means. And I think the reason why is because KT still have such great setup to get picks, but I think it's now kind of going to be reliant on T1 overstepping, somebody making mistakes, because the agency you have as KT with the lack of map control you're going to very soon be feeling is going to be so problematic. I think they've got 1 or 2 team fights left in them, or maybe they could set something up beforehand, but this Kennen can kind of just do whatever he wants. He's going straight into Void Staff second here.
Yeah. The one thing that's really good about Kennen as well is that Cease and Desist has much less value if you can get it off before Pyosik gets in. And often, you just can, right? Because he has to press the button and then run at you.
Yeah.
It's about whether Beryl can actually get these exhausts in the right times in these team fights. And it's all just going to hinge on that. And even then, I think maybe he's just too strong, you know? As Beryl's moving on over, just being a little bit frustrating here as this Cloud Drake is going to be secured. It's an Ocean.
You know, when you go... Okay, Owner, should be fine.
Yeah, he'll be all right.
When you go for the Crypt Bloom second and you are winning this game this hard, the item just feels so snowbally as well. I mean, it's got good stats, obviously, not quite the Magic Panda's Void Staff, but it's still very, very strong, and the passive of it, the heal, is actually just going to allow T1 to even overwhelm harder in these team fights. Potentially, again, we're talking about what this comp can do. We haven't really seen it in a real 5v5 yet because KTs haven't been able to show up for those because they've been so far behind in these lanes. Renekton catching minions, what little of the economy he can pick up, he is going to try to soak up. Went Stridebreaker, which is, you know, I mean, considering their comp, it's fine. It's sticky on one target, but
it is a good team fighting item,
yeah.
And I think that that's where Perfect has to try and find some relevance, right? He has a single target stun, which is pretty good for setup for BDD.
Yes.
And that is what he's built for now. See whether he can make that one work. Just to add a bit of a caveat, I mean, the bottom side of the map, very well for KT. Not nearly as well as, you know, the comparison to the top side in favor of T1, but this Xayah is farming well, does have 1.5 items now completed. Gumayusi on 2 is going to be pretty threatening, of course, but so far, we haven't really seen anything to show us how the shape of this game is going to look as it goes on, right? Because we haven't seen any sort of 5v5, any sort of setup. I really am intrigued as to whether or not, you know, KT can make it work, as I've seen this on the top side of the map. It's going to happen once again as there's the flag forward from Perfect. He avoids the Emperor's Divide, and then Pyosik just goes through it. Vault Breaker comes down, but it's not going to be enough. Carrier is going to pay for his sins, but he flashes out of the way. Bullet time to celebrate, and T1 are going to survive.
Yeah, unfortunately, Atlas, we've been talking a lot about 5v5 fights. If Renekton is not a champion in this game, I don't know if we're ever going to see any 5v5s. Maybe 4v5 is the best KT can hope for. As like you said, he's going to be a stun button. But T1 with a faster rotation, even with a Taliyah on the other side, KT commits so much and end up getting nothing. Sure, Guma's ult didn't get a ton of value in terms of damage, but it helped make sure that KT couldn't follow up further. And they're going to get a turret for this as well, it looks like.
Yeah, all 5 of them are over here. Seismic Shove goes wide. Perfect soaking as much of this as possible, but this is a foregone conclusion. Turret is going to go down, and T1 just slink away into the fog of war.
And you mentioned the Xayah in the lane, 20 CS up, been able to farm pretty well. But it doesn't necessarily matter because it's Xayah and there isn't setup for it and the rest of the map is on fire. And I think the MF, even slightly less economy, she's not that far behind, is still going to have a huge play, or a huge part to play in this game. And this particular team fight just makes sure that KT can't continue to chase here, as Owner's very low, Keria also low, but with that bullet time at the ready and Zeus teleporting in, continuing to fight, that would have just meant the end of the game for KT Rolster.
It was so close, man, to both of those kills onto Owner and Keria. If they are able to actually get those, if there's a little bit of extra money in KT, then maybe things look very different. But instead, T1, the early game working out, that is going to buy them that little bit of extra leeway that I think they've been missing in their last few series, right? It's not getting the classic T1 win lane situation online. And if you don't do that, then you can't take the level of risks that they often do in these games that have looked extraordinarily good in the past.
The Poppy is just, it feels like a page out of Peanuts' book, right? We've seen Hanwha Life kind of be, I don't want to say exclusively, but the most successful Poppy utilizers this season, and just putting that early pressure in the top lane to great use, and then just having so much pressure that you can take those risks, that you can kind of play a little bit fast and loose and still get away with it. Does feel very T1, the T1 that ended up being our finalists so many times in a row. It looked like maybe this season might have been the outlier, but at least in this first game, bouncing back in a big way. And I do look at, you know, this rapid fire cannon for Deft as kind of a symptom of the greater issue here in this Xayah. I think it's a great item for the Xayah. Is going to give her that first big auto, and will be able to help set up Feathers potentially here. It is going to be very key, but the question is, will they ever have the start of that chain CC onto a key target when Poppy is also getting really tanky in this game, also has steadfast presence, so makes it tough for Isn't to get in. And
the jump scare, 2,000 gold.
Yeah, it's a little too perfect. Okay, that looks much better. 1985, that's okay. 2,000 with 3 zeros is too much.
I was thankfully not alive, making me feel a little bit younger. Very, very good. Not quite 1985, baby. All right, T1 setting up for a dragon. This is going to be soul point for them if they're able to lock it down. A lot of extra map control. Not the greatest of dragons, but certainly one that they can leverage. And we've got a Renekton on a flank, or a handbag on a flank. We're not entirely sure. He's not in the greatest of spots right now as BDD moving forward.
Faker got a stopwatch too on this back, so he's got so much survivability here. And
ooh, Owner able to collect this. I believe that was actually the Q. I think it was an early smite and then actually secured it with the Q in the end.
Yeah.
Still, whatever works.
It's so hard to get in on this comp now with Owner just frontlining.
Yeah, and Zeus on a flank angle as well, looking to try and catch this Renekton, making his way forward. He's spotted on that control ward, and there we go. Perfect, still going to get tagged with the Shuriken, and Faker comes down. Renekton is very much going to die. It's just whether or not KT can find anything as a result of it, and the answer is going to be maybe mid lane out of turret, and I think, okay, never mind. T1 able to get back here in time. So that means the KT get nothing.
Isaiah still had teleport too, so even pushing up into that mid turret was probably a little bit scary. You don't know what angle he could have. They weren't able to check everything, clear every ward necessarily. They didn't know. Maybe he's teleporting back in. We're all about to die. We might lose the game right here, but they were at least able to try to chip away at this and get some control of the river back. Perfect has TP in 10 seconds.
Oh,
too late.
This dragon is still up and available. Faker is going to go golden, but there's the quickness. The bullet time is gigantic, though. And even Faker's sweep is going to work beautifully. Now Def, yes, he pressed the Feather Storm, but he comes down into hell once again. And T1 are going to wipe the map of KT. And Perfect, he just respawned. He's like, where did my friends go?
Well, you know, they'll be right behind him, running back to lanes. 7 kills down, 5,500 gold behind, and that's before this Baron goes over, because it's going. And I mean, you had a very slim chance of making all of that engage work and that setup there without the Renekton, but you have to try something as KT. You're super far behind, but Faker bought that Seeker's Arm Guard. He had the extra eco with some of that extra plate gold to pick that up. Didn't finish his Leandri's. Isn't that as interested in that, because he just knows that if he has enough money to buy the stopwatch, he will be safe in almost any scenario, and he is when the engage comes through. As look at KT here, they think, okay, we collapse onto Faker, we have Weavers, while Owner doing such a great job frontline and gets the double knock-up during the zone. He said, yes, he does end up getting hit here, but look who's also being defensive, who's bodyguarding Faker. It's Guma over the wall, and the cannon ultimate is just really for cleanup. This really, I feel like, sinks into your brain when you watch this team fight how many other ways T1 could have won this, but they just say, Faker, you know what, we can both defend the turret, and get the dragon. You've got the stopwatch. It's going to be fine. We're completely set up. There is just no way in for KT.
And it was a 4v5, and KT thought that they were going to find some sort of angle. Obviously not going to work out just there. So Kyoshik moving towards his top side to try and at least guarantee that they get some of this bounty gold, but it's 6,000 gold, 7 almost for T1 at this point in time. Soul Point also, I feel like we're watching the last series. You know, this is kind of like the advantages that B&K were getting, where they were the ones picking up all of the neutral objectives, but also winning the fights, winning the map, taking the turrets. And this is the T1 that we grew to expect, that we haven't seen for the last couple of weeks. They are going to be able to break open the base here on the bottom side of the map. And I think that I don't see really a way back for KT unless there is some sort of miracle.
Yeah, I think BDD was maybe hoping for a crazy flank there, but no one's vulnerable.
Well, it's trying to throw some rocks on the ground and things like that. T1 not looking too worried about it. In a turret in the mid lane will be just sort of looked at momentarily, and that does go down. There is still an inner on the top side. Minion Wave in an awkward spot for T1. But this is still a pretty good Rebel Baron power play, sitting at 2.2k. Still a minute left on that Baron as well.
Yeah, it's really just quite a clear advantage here for T1 in every single sense of it. Faker also finished Zhonya's, by the way, instead of going for the Leandri's finish, just saying, all right, well, I like that stasis again. That was pretty helpful for me in the last fight. And who does he really need to burn health off of in this game? Perfect is so far behind. There's no traditional tank in this composition, really. Renekton being the bruiser here. And, okay.
Yeah, flash out from Kyoshik is pretty necessary.
And you've got the locket on Owner, who's had such an amazing game of Poppy, as he always does. And it's just so hard. Who do you pick? Because Owner's positioning has blocked KT out. You need a flank. You don't have a strong Renekton to do so. He'll just get turned on. He doesn't have TP right now. And T1 just slowly grinding them out of the game.
Yeah, Seismic Shove is going to connect. And did we notice? Not really. That is a Keeper's Verdict, just to be channeled here by Owner for fun. And KT, I mean, the Baron is going to be wearing off in a couple of seconds, so that will stem the bleeding somewhat, but it is still so dark on this rift, as you can see. A couple of control wards here or there. As Kyoshik, he can take a wolf camp. That is the only place he's allowed to go in his jungle.
Yeah, that's the only place that's safe. The Dragon, which is soul for T1, is up in a minute. Baron is up in 3. I don't know if this game gets to that point if KT decide they want to challenge this. Perhaps the best course for KT is to just hope for an Elder Flip, hope you can live long enough for that. But Baron will be up long before that, and I guarantee you T1 will actually go and take it and prevent you from taking that. There's just no great options here. And as long as T1 kind of cross their T's, dot their I's, it's hard to find the angle. They're farming, they're trying to scale up a little bit. I mean, this is a Talia that's about to be a full item behind at the moment. We'll see what he picks up on this back, so that may change. Just a rod. Yeah. But I think the best way for KT to maybe win this one is just defend, and then defend a Baron, and then hope for an Elder Flip. But I just think the Baron ends the game. If you try to fight the Baron, you lose out.
And the problem is it's such a clear-cut wombo combo draft as well from T1. So if they're ever in a siege scenario, then Carrier presses Magnet Storm and there's a bullet time. And what does KT actually do to stop from melting?
And the other
especially when there's an Ocean Soul on top of it.
Yeah, the other thing too is that KT's comp requires you to be ahead. It requires you to be able to set up that chain CC. If you catch Guma even, which will never happen, but if you do, he's got barrier, he's going to be able to live long enough to where your other carry Faker, your other hyper carry Cannon that's about to have Death Cap, who also has an arm guard, will do the work anyway. So, like we were talking about in the draft, if you're even in the game, like if you're not ahead at all, if you're not massively ahead when we get to this stage of the game as KT, it gets really tough to play out. But if you're this far behind, the draft is just borderline unplayable.
Yeah, we're seeing that. You've got at least Perfect able to pick up some farm as the super minions make their way down the bottom lane. But you can see these bounties aren't going anywhere anytime soon. 9,000 gold the lead, 45 seconds on the Baron. That is where T1 are going to be turning their attention next. 3 items done here for Gumayushi, who is sort of just slowly but surely been doing what he needs to do. 3 items are done for Deft as well. He does have his Lord Doms completed. Needed to put that together just because Owner is just so frustrating and he needs to be able to get through some of the tankier members, but it will put behind his Infinity Edge that he desperately wants to put together. You can see that pickaxe in the inventory isn't quite there yet, as Pyosik looking to try and get out. Carrier not going to be able to quite find him with the Magnet Storm there, and so at least Pyosik will survive for now.
Yeah. Baron's up in 5.
Ow, that's a cool hat.
Rushing towards it and trying to clear some vision up here. Again, it's so hard without vision to fight into a Cannon Poppy MF ult Magnet Storm. Carrier doesn't have it right now, so that's also good news. But I feel like it's very simple for KT, or rather for T1 to just go to Baron and stand near the choke points and then eventually start it, because this comp excels at controlling Baron, and this is the problem is, you know, KT will have to muster up one last fight, but it will take a miracle.
See whether they can find it. This will be their opportunity as BDD at least has some information. Carrier flashing out of the seismic shove, not wanting to get caught on that one. Understands that a big pick could actually be a big moment here for KT to find an entryway. Because of course, when you have this many bounties up and available, does mean that a turnaround is a little bit more possible, I guess. If they're ever able to steal a Baron and win a fight, and that could be a big problem. So T1, conscious of that, I'm just going to back away. Ona moving on in, Beryl just trying to deal with him, BDD as well. Rogue Charge a little bit more difficult with rocks all the way over there. Cute little Teemo.
They do need to keep Zeus in a position to threaten, so it's actually kind of hard to start the Baron now that KT have closed this much of a gap. The damage from Guma is high, but alone isn't enough to rush the Baron. So playing very respectfully here are T1.
Yep, perfect. Gonna get slammed into the wall here. Almost a bait, but not really. It just kind of takes free damage. As Beryl getting vision in. Being able to at least see that the Baron is going to be a problem. He wants to try and escape from the Steadfast presence, but that's getting a little bit difficult. The rest of T1, they're on the map, they're all here, they're ready to start off this Baron, and it is not going to last very long. KT, if they're going to do anything, they need to go in and try and fight this immediately, but Perfect was back home. There was no way for them to do anything about it.
So I said it was going to take a miracle to maybe steal this Baron, take that one away, win the team fight here. I think it's going to take an incredible miracle to defend this Baron and then look for an
BDD
Elder.
was on that team.
Yeah, also Hirai, the coach of KT Rolster, was the former coach of...
Hey!
Yeah, I was sitting on this one for a little while. I didn't know you were going to pick up on it so quickly. But
no, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, you know, it is what it is. If you're an old League of Legends fan, you know. If you're an old StarCraft 2 fan, you know. But anyway, yeah, this one's looking doomed because T1 just siege, and if you try to flank them, you try to run at them, they press their R buttons together and you die. Good luck, KT Rolster.
Yeah, let's see whether they can make anything happen here as the next inhibitor turret is under fire. Ona able to just walk up, do whatever he wants. It is getting a little bit difficult here, as you can see Def finally taking a bit of damage. That is a seismic shove. They get a stun onto Carrier, who crashes out of there. Still, it's 50% health almost of a Rel. That's what they get for managing to find the angle. BDD, if he gets another one of these shoves, though, it could be an important moment here as quickness from Beryl. He looks for the angle. Ona just says no and presses W.
That was a little tricky way for him to try to do it, but Ona just is like, nah.
Yeah, the R for W trade is a rough one.
30 seconds after, or for 30 seconds before this Baron expires, the Elder will spawn. So T1, again, they'll even have to get permanent damage done here. They would like to get an inhibitor and then just be able to kite back easily, but so far, pretty heroic defense from KT.
Yep, and now we've got Faker having to use that Zhonya's once again. Ona taking a lot of damages. There's a bullet time, that's gonna get the doubles, and Zeus just cleans up the back line. Seismic Shove does nothing, Empress Divide does everything, and T1 will cleanly ace KT. They were very patient with that play, but this is gonna be the last one of the game. Surgical from T1 here in game number 1, and some well-needed revenge for them in the telecom war.
Oh man, it just kind of, we kind of willed it into existence. You know, I was telling you guys, if they engage, T1 presses their R buttons.
Oh no!
That they press their R buttons well, and the Zeus engaged there at the end, the cherry on top of what was a great Zhonya's again by Faker. They really just made sure KT had absolutely zero chance. Like, they took no risks. They took no chances. They were extremely patient, and it was quite a slow and painful end for KT, but I think T1 played it out basically as safe as you could ask for, and given the upset loss to KT last time, the loss to B&K, and some of their other woes recently. I think it's a reasonable way to close out a game when you have the better draft edge, you have this much control.
Yeah, and I think that this was the most quintessential T1 draft as well, and they just demonstrated that they play it so incredibly well. Here going through some of the issues here, looking for those incredible miracle opportunities. I didn't see too many myself. I think that managing to navigate this early game a little bit better, maybe even just stopping Owner from being able to play Poppy. It felt like so many of these moments were checkmates. But the first thing needs to be adjusted. And the first thing was a Renekton pick. And that needs to just be eliminated. If you like, you can see the punishment here in the graph.
Yeah. If you have a Renekton into a cannon, that in itself isn't necessarily the problem. And I think maybe they perhaps forgot that Owner is incredibly good at Poppy, the great snowballing jungler when you have that pressure point. Bit of a rough start here for KT Rolster.
I would say so, but it is a best of 3. They have an opportunity to bounce back. We'll see whether they can. Short break, then the space is going to break down that game. We'll have the next one coming up right after.
하긴 믿겠어? 세게 해본 게 나 이제.
얘네 형한테 빨리면 내가 공으로 다 잡히네.
팔려 더블 빠졌다 지금. 이랑 생각할게. 생각할게.
자야 도정아, 자야 도정아.
한번 빠졌다. 와봐.
자야 도정아, 자야 도정아.
하야 노스펠.
나 2, 3초, 자야 도정아.
하야 노스펠이야 노스펠.
자야.
타워 멈추고 있어.
나이스. 나와자.
Combo that they're so good at, but I mean, T1 just completely countered their entire game plan, so they have to start from scratch here this time around.
Yep, I think the Poppy might need a look.
Maybe?
I think the Poppy was something that was very, very valuable. I don't think you need to ban Jace. If you're just going to get crushed by Kennen, what's the point of banning Jace?
I mean, Zeus is just so good at so many different champions, and Faker historically has been, but I feel like recently not. I was going to say, just ban Azir.
Azir's a fine one, too.
That's what I was going to say, because Faker has, every time it's not, he can't play the top tier 80 carry, he just goes back to this. And I mean, KT have literally watched him go back to this in a lower bracket finals and lose their chance of going to the first grand finals in many, many years. When Faker is not at his peak, he leans on the Azir. Take that away from him, and we'll find out what T1's draft is like in game 2. I feel like Faker was also not POG worthy, but his itemization and his ability to just shut down some of those engages by pressing his arm guard made such a large impact in how those team fights played out. They will also take the cannon away.
I feel like they just banned away the things surrounding the thing that was really hard for them to deal with.
Yeah.
A little bit. But also, I do agree that the Azir was a problem. I don't know whether that Yordle was the biggest problem.
This feels to me like they're fishing for a first pick Renekton again.
Yep.
And there are other answers to the Renekton.
I mean, one of them they banned in the first game, and it's now available.
Yeah, it just... I was with them on the Azir ban. The Kennen ban was, to me, a step too far. But let's see how this shakes out, because the Kennen, again, very quintessential to how that comp for T1 played out and made it so difficult for them to set up those dives. They may just kind of run the draft back with this adjustment. Sejuani, is going to come through here this time around. The real big question is going to be, what is Faker playing? Corki is gone. Tristana is much weaker. He has not been our greatest Tristana player this season. They will just pivot to the Jace, which was the other champion that you were alluding to they banned in the previous game. Let's see if they'll be able to find that same punish with Sejuani Jace. Probably won't be as extreme as Pyosik.
Aha.
Going back to the Ivern.
All right, well, Ivan Lucian going to be locked in here. Faker, I kind of hope that he doesn't pick Tristana, which is up and available, but they also just have physical damage so far. That is a little bit of a wry grin on his face.
Yone, question mark? But it's so tough to play Yone Jace into Ivern brushes.
And also, like, Yone, Jace, Sejuani is so much physical damage towards the top side of the map that you'd be banking on the fact that T1 wouldn't... that T1 would be able to get their hands on a Ziggs or something like that. It is instead going to be a Talia locked in, something that can punish the dashes of the Lucian relatively effectively.
Yeah. And now it's assumed the solution is going to be going to the mid lane. I think that is, I'd say, a 90% certainty at this point. I do not think KT are going to flex that bottom. At T1 don't think so either. Going to ban Ziggs.
The Ziggs ban...
Well, maybe it...
Yeah, now that Talia's
is
locked in, it makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, now, maybe it could be, but either way, just trying to really cover their bases here because Ziggs is so frustrating to deal with, whether mid or top, with Ivern Brush setup, as we've seen many times here in the LCK Gen G. Let us all know. Kalista is going to be taken away once again. It's been a pick that unlocks so many different champions for Keria and gives Guma so much agency there in the bottom lane. So I like that ban as kind of a permanent fixture. Final ban here is a little bit tricky.
I think maybe support ban again, like a Leona to be taken away. And oh, Zeri instead. Not necessarily a pick that I associate with Deft completely, but could still work. I'd like to see Deft on Caitlyn because I like brush synergy.
A lot of teams would have just banned the Nami there just to make sure, but perhaps whatever Guma's got planned here is going to be relatively safe into that Lucian if it were to be flexed, so he's not as worried about it. And it's just not the same strong lane it was after multiple nerfs.
Not everyone's as big brain as CV Max Wolf,
yeah,
you know, from yesterday.
The MF taken away, I think, is wise. This does leave up the Senna, though. And like the Kalista pick I mentioned before, it also unlocks Keria to play a lot of different things.
A good old Seraphine Leona, the classic.
What if it's Seraphine mid? I hope not.
I mean, I don't know where it's going. I mean, theoretically it could.
Yeah, it's a lot of...
The Sejuani Senna for the Vi Talia as the final lock-in. That's actually pretty cool.
That's very T1. And I do think it is relatively risky, but they're going to do it anyways.
Oh, that's the Lee Sin.
It's happening.
Oh, thank goodness. This is what I've been calling for. I don't know, like, it wouldn't have been better than the Poppy in the last game. Ona was absolutely incredible, and I ate my words on that one. However, it's just always fun watching Ona play this champion.
I think that the Ziggs, you know, ban here is really smart, but I almost kind of looking at this, maybe the Ziggs would have been, it's hard to say. I look at the draft of KT and I go, well, Senna is going to take a long time before she can hurt these champions, and they're going to have a lot of shields, and then also she can't hurt them if she can't see them. If they lose map control, it's tough. The same with the Jace. He's going to really struggle to land his poke if the brush setup is there constantly. Again, this is reliant on KT having an early game advantage, having a mid game advantage, and then being able to set up on those objectives, because without it, then it becomes really easy for the Jace to just kind of force brushes to be placed in places that KT don't want to have them, so try to leapfrog their way towards objectives. But there's a lot of shielding in this composition. It is definitely going to be a high-value Chemtech Dragon game.
Oh, yeah.
Mountain as well will be super high value if either of those go there. Oh, no.
We're just trying to remember the fact that it could happen.
Well, this time it's a near unanimous for KT, and so far not looking great for them. Much better draft here, in my opinion, though, in Game 2. With all these shields, the Lucian and the Renekton are going to be tough to deal with, but it does rely on so much of the setup. Here, great T1 draft. Cool flex of the Sejuani into the support role. We'll see what Keria can get done.
Yep, I'm very interested to see whether KT can bounce back after a tough loss. Let's jump into the Rift for game number 2. All right, everyone extraordinarily loud, as per usual. Absolutely fantastic. Deft is going to be piloting the Seraphine. He's going to be conquering things there on the bottom side. I had a brief squiz at his solo queue record. And
a squiz?
A squiz. It's having a look.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
Okay, I learned something.
You haven't heard squiz before?
No, I'll learn something else when you tell me what you saw in his.
Right. Zero. I saw no Seraphine at all. So this is hidden tech that he has been building alongside, maybe on a separate account, maybe just in scrims, or maybe he hasn't played it yet. I don't know.
It is known to be a high-skill champion.
I mean, you drop the beat and stuff, you know, and it's cool, and she does high notes.
I mean, when you consider the shields between Seraphine, Ivern, also trying to get into those brushes when the Seraphine ult's just going to be flying at you, and it is really scary to think about the potential of this composition. Kind of uncharted territory, as Renekton's not a traditional tank, but with all the shielding, he becomes better than a traditional tank. He also heals himself, so...
You just build your own tank. And Ivern literally does that, because Daisy's kind of a tank. So that's pretty cool.
I didn't see if he was playing Renekton Toy, but that would be fitting if you're doing a build a tank situation.
I still think that Outback Renekton does the most damage. That's just my theory.
Well, you might have to look at the in-game stats for that one.
Might have to.
I think there might be some facts against your theory.
Yeah, could be. It's probably not real, but I like to keep it as my headcanon.
It is Conqueror Seraphine.
Yeah.
Here in the bottom lane. Not looking for Comet or any sort of area, any sort of harass here in this bottom lane. Just going to be doing a lot of damage, as much as he can. The sustained trades.
Ooh, Faker throwing some boulders around and actually able to dodge as Beryl takes a turret shot as Deft is dropping the beat. Beryl's still actually able to keep himself alive because, of course, Eclipse and Aftershock are a broken combination. Still, it's a pretty even trade between the two. As, oh my goodness, another one. 95% win rate here for Gumushi on his center.
20-1. This is LCK only, by the way, has a lot of wins internationally on this pick as well.
Yep. That is a pretty good scoreline.
He lost once out of 21 games. I don't know, like, no matter how you frame it, it's just insane.
Yeah, no, it's just particularly good. Let's see whether KT can actually come out on top. Because, of course, Senna is also a champion that isn't necessarily as strong as it used to be. You know, a lot of those wins did happen previously. So this is going to be slightly different story, I guess.
It is kind of tricky to play a Sejuani into Seraphine Leona. The Aftershock value is going to be high, but you're kind of, you know, not only are you melee, but your engage is relatively slow. It's really easy for Deft to just kind of keep you at bay and kind of annoy you in the laning phase.
Beryl, what are we doing? We're just living under a turret. That's his game plan. He just gets bored and wants to press Zenith Blade. And you blame him?
Wait
Maybe.
a minute. I've seen this one before. That's not a Poppy, but looks like he's not going to commit to the play, but a scary moment nonetheless for Perfect.
Maybe foreshadowing what's going to happen in the future. Thankfully for Perfect, he is going to at least be able to pick up this minion wave. Only 10 CS behind. I say only 10 CS behind because we've seen this matchup go even more in favor of the Jace, both at the hands of Zeus' Jace and Keen's Jace. Like, we've got some pretty good Jaces.
Khan's Jace back in the past.
Hey, yeah, that's true.
You know?
Pawn's Jace as well. I mean, he's here in the crowd. One of our better mid-Jace players is Pyoshik. Trying to find a root caller onto Faker, and not too much is going to come of it. And Ona coming down towards that bottom side. Let's see whether they can survive this, as Ona takes a fair bit of damage, but also dishes back a lot as well with that Tempest.
Yeah. BDD gets a bush. That's always the most annoying thing about... one of the most annoying things.
Harder to dodge the piercing light.
Yeah.
When there's a bush. You know,
yeah,
you can't see the initial cast of the bush.
It does make your ability to look for a shove, you know. It's not that secret where you're standing when it's just the one little pixel brush there, but he's not going to stand it when you try to shove him, so.
True.
We'll see it.
Is going to be able to teleport back.
He did take TP, which I think was pretty obvious to everyone. That was the kind of lane we were looking at here, but I don't want to point it out, so he can just get these kind of cheater recalls here. Picks up a tier. Amtome.
Gumushi is going to be missed, but that could have been a very rough time.
He does have cleanse, but would have been pretty disastrous, as you say, and BDD putting the pressure on here in mid. Faker's already used one teleport, so we'll have to walk back to lane. And we haven't seen Lucian mid really all too much outside of the Corki matchup, but he is definitely putting the pressure on here. And it's been a while since we've seen Lucian mid as a mainstay. It's really been since 2021 when the Showmaker Lucian era was there, went banned every game.
Yeah.
But he's putting the pressure on. He's doing a great job. Lucian was changed with his passive, so he doesn't do as much if he's alone, but he still does enough.
And that just shows the power of AD carries at the moment.
Yes.
If Lucian can be played in a solo lane, you know that there is something wrong. As Pioshik's going to come on over, I don't know whether he's going to be able to stop Owner here, but he at least gets information that it is happening. BDD on the recall means that's just not quite going to be a thing that they can contest. As Pioshik is going to come in and at least supervise. And yep, just presses a button, and Owner is going to ignore it.
He made his feet cold, and then he kept killing the grubs.
Well, Owner is going to look for him. Root Caller does come down, and there is the Weaver's Wall. Flash out from Pioshik, but Faker follows him immediately. Now BDD is going to turn up, and there's the culling. Owner still level 5, so doesn't have the kick. And meanwhile, Zeus and Perfect are fighting. The flash out, but the flash in. First blood for BDD, and Perfect follows up immediately. That's 3 kills. And is it going to be 3 games?
I mean, it's looking more likely after this moment. Don't count T1's chances out just yet, but I mean, it looked really silly for the first part of this. Guma is hanging around looking for a potential steal.
Oh, that would be a pretty unfortunate steal, as that was a pretty early smite, I believe. And Gumayushi is going to turn up, and Daisy is also going to come in. Perfect. Getting that shoved through. Zeus is still wandering towards the lane. Meanwhile, in the bottom lane, Keria is just doing his very best, but there is a Demolish proc, and
so
man, these high notes are really hurting.
Yeah, KT is really winning everywhere. I mean, getting the advantage here bottom side as well. Some extra plate gold for the Seraphine. You can see the gold graph showing.
Yeah, Encore is going to come on through here as Owner turns up. Keria almost dies, actually, before it even happens. As Beryl, he's under the turret, and he's going to die. That means the Deft is also really dead, but at least they get one.
Well,
there's that. Shenanigans.
You know, it went over to the Leona, though. They lose a plate top, and yeah, that's why I said don't count T1 out. Maybe I should have said don't count Beryl out.
Don't count KT in, maybe is what we should have said.
So this looks really silly for Pioshik at first because you're like, why is he contesting? You don't have the numbers, but BDD is able to come over here. Perfect is winning the isolated matchup into a Jace who has to kind of rotate down, so Perfect does a ton here. And in this skirmish, Faker has a combo, but BDD is an AD carry, so he actually has long-term attack damage here in this fight. Pioshik has shielding for him, so it's hard to pick him. So a bit of an overextension there by T1. And then they got really excited about, we're going to kill Keria. And then it took them a really long time to kill Keria. And they kind of forgot about everything else on the map. Like, they tunneled on this super hard, and this is T1 right back in the game.
And, like, I mean, I don't know whether it's necessarily, like, right back in the game, just because that triple kill for KT was definitely very, very big. But I understand the thought process of, like, there are 2 bad guys coming. Let's just try and get what we can before we're definitely dead.
Yeah, they got a plate. They wanted more. And then as soon as they saw Owner, like, that was, say, the only call. I was like, we got to kill him. And Beryl's like, oh, I'm definitely going to kill him. It's gonna be
Beryl pressing Zenith Blade when there's a turret to be hit by. I mean, he's always doing that. He's always doing that.
Yeah, we need to add, like, if he ends up carrying this game and getting POG, we add, like, the little stats, like, times Zenith Bladed into turret range. It's like 17.
Yeah, and we need the percentage as well. Oh, as Faker is just dead. Yeah, there's the flash forward, gets the double tap, and BDD, he's on a killing spree. He is too big right now.
And you know, I think we have to really respect the Lucian. Faker flashes as well, but I mean, BDD also has flash, and he's just able to pew-pew him to death.
Yeah.
You called him out of the game.
All right, Daisy's coming out, but Owner's coming in. And Perfect going to find the stun. They're still going to go for this one. There's the knockup. Thanks, Daisy. And out goes Owner. Let's see whether he can keep himself alive, though, because Daisy's still in amongst it. The Root Caller helping the Renekton get in. Another Zenith Blade. Where's the turret range? Where's Gumayushi's health bar? My goodness, the damage to come out from... That's just a lost chapter.
Just a
what
lost
the heck?
Chapter in a Torrens ring.
What the...
But
what?
It's a ton of damage. Guma's just super squishy, and I
guess that's it. Yeah.
I mean... He is a Senna, after all. He's only a level behind Deft. It's not like he just doesn't have his health growth. But either way, everything hits, and that's a lot of damage. And ultimately, ends up being fairly disastrous down there. As we'll watch this solo kill as he just dashes in before the rocks can be placed. It's just a really proactive play by BDD. He's just like, I get in before you set the rocks, you're dead. You got to respect my lead that I have.
Yeah. As they were the girls from our picture-in-picture before, as another encore going to come in, as Carrier is going to get solar flared as well. There's a Zenith Blade from Carrier one more time. Sorry, from Beryl one more time, as Faker is once again fighting BDD. This time the shove into the rocks is going to come on through. He's playing with fire here as Ona comes on over, but Pioshik in perfect position. Sonic Wave not going to find the mark. And now T1 trying to rotate more friends over here to try and help out the mid lane. There's the Weaver's Wall as BDD. He's got the Trigger Seed shield. He just turns around and kills Faker. There's the kick flash as Pioshik is going to flash to get back out once again as Ona. One more turret shot and he's going to die, but that's not going to come on through. And now Deft is going to need to turn up. There is going to be the kill onto Zeus. And now Perfect comes in at the same time. Gumayusi, oh dear. Let's see whether he can get himself out of this one. Perfect is going to have a slice and or dice coming up relatively soon. His flash is also only a couple of seconds away. The flash comes through from Gumayusi though. That is going to send them out of there.
Somebody check those AP ratios on the Seraphine. This is a little out of control. BDD gets the shield, trades back the kill, so very proactive here from T1, but it ends up backfiring as, I mean, it turns out playing, they opted into this, by the way, but playing the Sejuani into the Seraphine is not very fun, especially when there's a Leona to just kind of bully the cow, or pig, rather. Poor. Yeah. He got there in the end, but
poor Bristle.
Owner is in trouble.
Oh, this is live. Okay, yeah, Daisy's going to get another knock-up as Perfect comes on in. That is going to be the kickback, and that should be enough to disengage. But he has to get the heck out of here. That is going to be a Hextech Drake to be taken here by KT. First Dragon in 12.5 minutes. Is a pretty late Dragon, but it's only, I guess, 12.5 minutes into the game. Feels like we've had a lot of stuff happen.
Yeah, BDD does have teleport. See if he wants to commit to trying to defend some plates here. Topside is taking the grubs here also by T1. Very greedy. It's going to take Ivern a million years to get that Dragon, but...
yeah, very true. It's, all right, Perfect is just flashing forward. This guy is angry. And now Gumayusi completely out of mana, but did manage to throw down the Dawning Shadow at least. Should be able to walk this one off. So
it's so greedy what T1 did there, and they get punished again.
I feel like we've had 2 games in a row where it's one team just trying to do too much when they're not allowed to, and it's happened now on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I will credit T1 a lot for the way they played around that draft in game 1, but this time trying to cross map when they don't really have that big of a numbers advantage, a little bit rough. No two ways about it. It's 2,000 gold deficit for T1 now. Chemtech Dragon, by the way, extremely relevant. Even that one solo Dragon for this double shield composition here that has been cooked up by KT. So I think they will definitely be grouping for that one. As it's a Leona, you know, you can't punish her. You're looking for the grubs here, but just respect this composition, respect its damage output. The Senna is going to offer very little in return at this stage of the game. So you don't even really have the numbers advantage you think you do in that moment.
I'm kind of loving what is happening here with this KT draft, though. This Seraphine working out very, very well. Blackfire Torch is now done. And Deft, we'll see whether he does the double burn as well. Might just be a whole lot of burn for the Seraphine.
I mean, the tier doesn't have to necessarily be made into the Seraphs because it's just going to give you extra mana for harassment and lane. Feels very good. Very cost-efficient item. Seraphine's not balanced around farming.
Beryl, this is actually one of the first times I've seen Beryl play without the Iron Solari Leona skin. He's been very, very adamant about picking that skin. He does have a skin that he got with Damwon, but this time I think just trying to match the Seraphine vibes there on the bottom side.
I think he just doesn't, he's not a big self-promo guy.
No.
He lets his gameplay speak for itself.
And he's a bit of a skin synergy in the bottom lane kind of guy as well. We have seen that he has picked matching skins in the past.
Blackfire Torch is going to make this Seraphine have less fun. The Seraphine will have more fun. The Sejuani will have less fun.
Yeah.
And she wasn't having a lot of fun before, but it'll be very annoying to deal with all of that burn damage in this lane. And so constantly there's this hole where Guma has been roaming, but he hasn't been able to get much done. He's 3 levels down on depth. Obviously, that's how this works, right? But it means he's very squishy. So even the Seraphine damage, which isn't bursty, by nature feels bursty into him, and he's very vulnerable in this composition against the Renekton, against the Lucian burst as well. So it's very difficult for Guma to play the game, and if you don't get map control, you can't really do much with Jace here either, going towards objectives because of the Ivern brushes we talked a lot about in draft. He may have overstepped.
Well, the minion wave is coming to him now, so there's no real reason for him to step too far. Not going to head towards the brush now, and is just going to look for a back angle. Ona biding his time, but for what is the question, as T1 they are going to be able to take this turret on the bottom side of the map, and that is first turret blood, I believe. Yeah, it is. So bit of an extra inroad of money.
Definitely a huge win for the somewhat starved fasting Senna here.
A little bit unfortunate that KT weren't able to actually patch that one up, because Rift Herald, I don't know whether it's worth it.
I think if they can get the mid turret with the Rift Herald, it will definitely feel very valuable for the solution, and they can try to utilize it when this Drake spawns as well to use that as kind of a double whammy, look for a charge there, and then have that prio set up the brushes. So I think it is very valuable. Senna uses gold, relatively well. It's still going to be useful that they got that turret, but it opens up a hole in the bottom map that KT aren't that interested in. I still think it's a huge win for T1 and a bit of a mistake by KT, but at least they have the Herald in return as BDD once again in danger.
Gets a control ward in there, though. That is value. And Ona, I believe, was actually spotted. When we saw it from BDD's perspective, it was just the Jace, but I don't think he's going to go for too much, and you can see just going to wait for that minion wave to come on over as Snare is going to connect. Gumushi, almost tagged by the Zenith Blade.
When you look at the gold, considering the lead KT had earlier, T1 have really shored that up. I mean, this is with a fasting Senna, as Guma, speaking of.
Yeah, speaking of fasting Senna, he's going to take a lot of damage here, as once again, I mean, the passive from Seraphine actually just
BDD
really
is
doing a whole bunch of work. Is okay, yeah. In a dash away, there's the flash forward from Ona. He just had a feeling that that one was going to be waiting for him, and good patience. BDD not going to be biting off more than he can chew. That was a cannon that he gave up so that he didn't die there.
They had so many wards on the top side, as well as one there to the left of the Dragon Pit, and he's like, Owner's nowhere on the map. He has to be looking for something here. I know Jace has been camping me, and so he's just had really good game sense there, and susses it out, drops the control ward, then knows they're sticking around very likely, is going to play respectfully there, and now Owner has no flash, backs away, and KT have a Herald they can drop. They've got full prio on this Dragon. They're even going to push down this turret now.
Yeah, and I think actually because they managed to stave off that gank, they're able to get this turret, or at least most of the turret,
most of it.
Immediately rewarded for BDD's defensive play. Now maybe immediately punished. Let's just see how this one's going to go as the teleport in. BDD looking for Gumushi, has to flash. Double TPs means that now T1 find themselves a little bit late to their own party, and it's going to be the outer turret taken. KT now grouped up, ready to go for this Dragon as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'll be starting that Dragon if I were you, Guma. I think KT are taking control.
Oh, perfect. He wants more. Strybreaker going to come on through there as he's doing a lot of damage. And this Renekton, way less anemic than the other one.
Yeah, he's been fed. This is going to be a TP top for Zeus. They're going to try to push mid at the same time.
There's the flash forward as Faker's going to get interrupted. No riding on the wall for you, sir. And the Solar Flare is going to find the sweet spot. That is an interruption, but BDD is just going to zap him down. And Faker finds himself 0 and 4, unfortunately. And KT, they're going to put Perfect in the bottom lane. He's going to take down that inner turret. And it's just like they just took off the clothes from the last game and replaced them.
T1 is basically trying to do so much here. They're not okay. It should still be the turret.
Yeah, you can keep talking
so
about
anyway,
the other thing.
I feel like the KT are just not going to fall prey to T1 being like, I get something cross map. They're just not going to let them have anything. BDD?
Yeah, he's going to be in a whole host of trouble. The Dawning Shadow is even going to help out, and the turret loses interest in stopping T1 here. So KT will be able to answer with a Dragon.
They finally got him.
Yeah. Infernal Soul as well this game. That's an exciting one.
This Dragon, I feel like, might be one of the highest value single Drakes we have ever seen in the LCK with the double shields. But, I mean, as T1 are saying, we're going to give the Dragon, you're going to take Dragon, we'll get mid-turret. KT are like, no, we kill you, and then we'll get the Dragon. At least they're able to, because Zeus had already set up the teleport topside, killed that top turret, have the pressure here where Owner is able to come in and take him out for the first time after like 3 previous attempts by Zeus and Owner. They will kill BDD. But at the end of the day, Soul Point is the next Dragon here for KT. The gold lead isn't that massive, but it just doesn't seem like T1 They've been coordinated enough to deal with these Ivern brushes, but all it will take is one single crushing team fight for T1 to get them into the driver's seat and then stop the Ivern setups on these objectives. And it's just going to have to be a little bit tighter play, as KT are not just going to be simply out-macroed by T1. They've been able to match them at every turn.
Yeah, I like that they are still staying very proactive, right? Still getting around this map, trying to take down objective after objective, find these opportunities. The more they can group up and utilize the Ivern and the shields, the more value they're going to get. As, okay, Beryl could find himself in a rough spot, but he's going in! There's a turret! He has a Zenith Blade, and he's getting under there, and he's surviving, for goodness sake! That was way too long to be alive, as now Deft will finally turn up. Speeds himself through here. Perfect is now going to find his entranceway, but KT have already lost one. Seismic Shove is going to knock back the Renekton, and he could be the next little pickup here as they take down the turret. Perfect is going to be alive. He is much less squishy than he was in game number one. Has another Seismic Shove. This time, he is definitely dead. The Encore! And Deft is able to help take down Ona. Gumayushi follows immediately as Deft... I mean, the Seraphine is doing ridiculous work. He does die. T1 win the fight, but I'm still very impressed with this Seraphine.
Yeah, no, it was very good charm and a good setup with the abilities, but maybe don't chase into the choke.
Yeah, no, it was like the decision making was really dumb, but it was impressive that like what happened.
The
right?
choke point was the barrel that the fish jumped in. That KT were the fish, they jumped into the barrel, and Zeus was like, well, I'm firing at it. You know the saying goes. Barrel's like, this is an experiment. I've got Redemption, I've got Seraphine shields, I've got Ivern shields, I've got Eclipse. Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, the experiment was interesting, but it was a failure. And then Perfect tries to help turn this one around. Deft goes
he does
for
the same thing.
Yeah, Deft goes for the flash charm play here. Guma has cleanse. And yes, you end up getting 2 kills here, but Faker and Zeus just layering the damage through. And yes, you've got some shields there, Deft, but unfortunately, maybe went a bit too far. A lot of lethality damage here, so when the shield is gone, so is his health bar, as it turns out. And
Zeus can also build the world's most high-value Serpent's Fang in the history of League of Legends.
And he there it is.
There it is. Okay, good. So
right, we figured it out. Yep.
That is probably the best item choice that you could buy. I would even say that Gumayushi should have built it first. And Faker could also buy one. I think Ona should get one and Keria should get one as well. Everyone has one, and then everything's going to be fine.
I think just the Jace for now is fine. But maybe Senna later. We will have to wait and see, but
we have Kisun from the Pog Lab, so he can actually he can have the science for us, right?
Yeah.
He can tell us whether just one is going to be enough.
I feel like this game, KT are no longer fully in control. I mean, they have...
It's not even 1,000 gold to lead.
Exactly. And T1 are rapidly getting back into their territory, right? They've eliminated a lot of KT's oppressive map control. The Jace has gotten value. I think KT kind of dove head first into a bad play there topside. Now, they do have Baron control here now, and this is just enough to actually set up some brushes and say, you can't contest this. I don't think they're going to start it. They do have a lot of damage, but not enough. And they are just going to set up some vision, but that could have been a way to force T1 into a really awkward fight, but otherwise T1 are like, cool, we're going to get more control of the bottom side of the map where that Drake is spawning, which is a little bit more relevant at this stage of the game. And I do prefer T1's position here. Let's see what KT do to try to contest this Dragon, as yeah, that's the big damage.
Yeah,
kind of pre-shield that one.
Deft does do a fair bit of damage, but yeah, he also takes about 1 million from Zeus, and he's not actually able to shield it.
I think they wish it was a Mountain Soul.
Yeah, I really am looking forward so much to the Serpent Fang value and how much it is actually going to be able to do. Zeus already doing the most damage in the game right now, actually quite surprising considering the fact that BDD does have 5 kills so far and has been very involved in this one.
In this jungle that supposedly belongs to KT, but the toggle here is showing the different story.
Yeah. Tribrush Ward is going to be important, but you can see Ono looking for an opportunity. I don't think he's going to be able to steal away this Drake. That is going to be the sole point picked up by KT. Now, the Weaver's Wall comes in. Glacial Prison is used. And KT are going to take the Drake and then look for a flash play onto Ona. That is a miss, though, unfortunately. There is now Perfect looks for the pickoff, and Senna is just dead. Seismic Shove used defensively, that is decent peel, but now the culling comes in. The Redemption layered on top. The teleport flank angle, and there is the encore. Zay is going to be taken out. Deft is answered though. Carrier going down very low, and KT, they still have their 80 carry because it's BDD.
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of like accidental funnolution, okay?
Yeah.
Of all the goals.
Oh my goodness,
And then he's
it
got
finally worked.
He's got double shields. He's having a good time. Now, we were watching Owner with the vision toggle, so I don't know entirely how T1 gave up their control of the bottom side of the map here, but they completely did, and then Kochik was able to set up brushes here, then Owner looks for a desperate steal. They don't have an angle. Barrel's looking for a flash engage on the other side of this fight, but Perfect, he's got his dominus, and he is ready to push through. Guma just goes down instantly, did not have cleanse, and this is just an easy fall. I appreciate Zeus' heroics here because they already used the shields. The Redemption comes down. Deft has to be shielded a second time. He's got enough shields to actually just then take out the Jace, and there's no Guma, so that's just the end of the fight because Faker can't really damage them. He's a stun bot in this game, unfortunately for him. The knockup bot, whatever way you want to put it.
Oh god, okay, so now we have a cool hat for Deft. So the Seraphine, this is a lot of damage. This is not the classic where you're just building Moonstone and Harrier and you've got all of those, all of the healing and the shielding
It's
and everything's
AP
great.
Seraphine, yeah.
It is just damage, and it is working like a dream.
And Senna's so squishy that, you know, she just kind of dies. Faker, similar situation. He has his Seraphs at least, but it's just so hard to deal with this Seraphine's damage, plus her utility, right? Her roots, her ultimate is fantastic. It's kind of crazy. Like, in mid-Seraphine was a thing for a while, but it was never really built like this. It was just a secondary support. But in this game, you get the shield value, and the AP ratio on that is pretty good. And you have the Ivern as well, so it's just kind of crazy what this Lucian is able to do as well. And even the Renekton is difficult to kill, and Jace has the Serpent's Fang, but that's not an auto win button. You still have to, you know, break through the shields. More effective at it, but it's not going to be the insta win. And he tried his best in that last fight. T1 were pretty doomed in that situation. But I think if T1 can control space before an objective, then they can win fights. Unfortunately, they did not have any control. They had a flanking Lee Sin in that last one, and you know, maybe it's now too late for them to get control as the gold lead is spiked back up here for KT, but still remains to be seen. But I think it's not 100% over because T1, if they win one fight, could turn this one around.
Well, Beryl is looking for another Zenith Blade, doesn't find it this time. He is certainly on I'm going in mode, and that has certainly not changed throughout the entirety of this series. Now, able to get on in here, that Seismic Shove not really going to find too much there as Faker's just going to have to back off to the next line of defense.
Zeus is heading home, but they need a defense and they need it now.
Yeah, they've got so much poke as they're sieging out these turrets as well. As now KT wary of the fact that there could be a bit of a flank angle here. They can't see the Jace on the minimap. BDD is rotating in. Ono still looking for that angle, and Perfect. He's just prepping this bottom wave.
Yeah. If BDD gets picked for any reason, I feel like KT cannot win the fight, but he's just been so careful this game. It's kind of insane.
Yeah. And he just understands that he is the one that has the target on his back. And he's going to play around it as best he can. Q going to connect there onto Pyosik, who's just going to back off. Big shield eruption there with the Shock Blast. And Perfect just wants to find that blast cone in. The Infernal Rift certainly helping out there as far as giving Renekton some engage angles.
It's just no great angle here for anyone to teleport to. It's a Jace, you know?
Oh god, okay, BDD dashing forward this time is going to get out of the way of the Seismic Shove yet again. I mean, hitting the Lucian with that is just obscenely hard. It is so difficult.
KT just kind of prio their way through this mid lane to the Dragon spawning in 30 seconds, and that's a ton of damage for the Seraphine. You consider the stat she's already picked up from the solo Infernal Drake with the Death Cap, stacking everything together. So much AP on this champion, again, that isn't really necessarily balanced around what he has done. And so she does a lot of damage. She has the same utility. And this Lucian is so hard to kill because BDD is playing so safe, knowing, as you said, that he is the main character. He is the backbone of this comp.
Not to mention, he also gets like movement speed, I'm pretty sure, from the W from Surround Sound from Seraphine. He also then gets the extra shield, the reapplication of the Trigger Siege shield, and then like it's just kind of
Wait,
ridiculous.
T1?
But T1, yeah, looking for this one. Def realizing that that wall is in a rough position. Let's see whether they can keep themselves alive. Is Perfect? You are just dead, my friend. The rest of your team were not there.
That was a disaster.
Yeah.
KT, they pushed mid all the way to the inhibitor, but didn't get the inhibitor. So that doesn't mean you necessarily just for free get the back. I think they definitely should have split their backs and tried to send some members who didn't need to purchase items actually over there to contest some prio. Because like I said, if T1 get there first, they can win a fight. And Faker just said, no, you're not allowed to come over here. And then instead of walking away with taking the L, Perfect was like, oh, that's a big Q. And then he went in and he did the big Q, but then he died because his teammates couldn't get there. So yeah, this one's just a bit bizarre. As like his whole team can't be here,
He like flashed in.
yeah, he wanted to see how much healing he could get on one big Q. It was a lot, but then he died.
Huh.
He had Sterix, not enough actually, as it turns out.
Sometimes you just wanna get yourself in there. You wanna feel like a big crocodile, and that's a solar flare. That's gonna get a flash and an Arctic Assault out.
And does this change the state of the game?
No,
not really, because only Perfect died, and it's only the first Infernal Dragon for T1. But it's really good for T1 that they didn't give the Infernal Soul to KT. However, it's less good that they didn't actually win a team fight, and KT still have map control, and yeah, that inhibitor's still naked, and it doesn't change the overall state of the game all too much.
Yeah, and Baron going to be up in 19 seconds. Perfect is not even forced to use a teleport or anything to get over there, so no harm, no foul, but still quite a quizzical utilization of an engage angle where he didn't necessarily need to. But that's fine. That's fine. We'll stop harping on about it.
Yeah, no,
he's a young man, young player, and we'll give him benefit of the doubt that he.
We'll let Hirai tell him, you know.
Yeah. I think perhaps we know where the VOD review's going to start.
Comment and Supreme probably have a few words as well.
Yeah.
Maybe Deft is already.
I imagine if like they pull Perfect aside and say, Perfect, do you know what you did wrong? He's gonna be like, yeah, I know I shouldn't have gone in there, but like, you know, I just rush a blood to the head. I won't do it again, boss. It's okay.
By the way, this is really peculiar how KT keep like having the perfect angle to start Baron and having the choke point control, get set up brushes, and then just go chase a Sejuani. Just put up the brushes, use your setup.
Oh no. Now just going to be chased out by Beryl. There's a Weaver's Wall as Beryl's getting amongst it, going to stun him up here as the high note is so good. Solar Flare going to connect onto Owner as well. Remember, he does have a GA, so he can keep himself alive for a lot longer.
What if you were a champion with CC, shields, a little bit of healing, and also a bunch of damage?
Yeah.
Would you be Seraphine? I think you would be in this game.
Huh, yeah.
It's actually crazy. All right, now they're going to start the Baron. T1 all around them.
Yeah, there's a seismic shove, going to connect onto Perfect. Down to 50%, the Shock Blast is not going to land as Owner. Can he be the hero? He gets it, he steals it! And he is going to go down to the GA. Can they get themselves out alive, though? That's the question. Even Owner is able to survive, but Gumayusi's dead. The Jace is dead as well. There is not a lot of damage left in this composition. And the kick out onto Pyoshik there. Deft is probably going to have the damage if he can actually land a few of these buttons. The smite comes in, and there it goes. Surround sound means that he's just never going to be able to touch the Seraphine. And even though the Baron was picked up here by T1, it's likely that KT can still do some big damage to this base.
I mean, Zeus, he did kill a lot of shields in that fight, but otherwise not able to do a whole lot. Faker alone to defend is going to be so difficult. Guma not really an 80 carry here. They have Baron buff minions.
Oh, another Solar Flare. That really nailed the minion as Faker's going to go golden. Seismic Shove connected in the meantime. That looked pretty good, but Faker is still dead. And Daisy, she's just wandering around. Carrier going the wrong direction, throws an ulti to Narnia, and he will be taken down. It's BDD collecting his 8th of the game as Gumayusi slinks into the mist, but he might want to stay there as this game is over. KT roaring back into the series. It would not be a telecom war without 3 games. And I'm so glad that KT were able to turn it around and give us 3 in this one.
T1 falling behind early after a really rough skirmish around the Grubs, but this composition was quite unique. The way that KT put it together was pretty cool to see. Crowd in unison here, chanting and cheering for KT. A big bounce back, potentially a 2-0 if they can win the 3rd and final game of round robin telecom wars here.
Oh, imagine that.
BDD, he had a fantastic game. Evolution was so patient, so calm in those critical moments. Perfect for the most part was that one whoopsie, but otherwise this
No, we're going to pretend that moment didn't happen. The space is not going to highlight that moment, so it's fine.
The otherwise looked like a very well-practiced composition here for KT. Very oppressive, very difficult to deal with, and it's a complete 180 from the single target blow-up comp they did in Game 1. They're like, no, how about just all the shields, all the healing, all the oppression, and that is exactly what we got in this second game. So a complete 180, and this really hit the mark. It was a risky draft, but damn, did it pay off.
Looked really good. I tell you what, B2D, he must have got some tips from his old mate Prey that, of course, they used to play together for quite some time. His Lucian was fantastic. B2D looked really good in this game, but the Seraphine also stealing the show, much like she would. We're going to go to a short break, ladies and gentlemen. When we get back, game number 3, before that, the space to break it down.
건이 형 공 쓰면 저 걷다 공 옮길게요. 내가 W 켜줄게. 기다려봐. 그 연포 들어가. 여유로워. W 줘봐. W 켜줄게. 살려. 살려봐줘. 라클 당했다 이거. 라클 당했어. 그럼 세주 잡아. 잡자. 용 1분. 큐 맞췄어? 걸래? 저가. 끝낼만해. 제이스 노플. W 켜줄게. 나 실드 2초. 타워. 베이스 높여? 타워. 야, 들어오면 봐. 야, W 있어.
Been really weird.
Yes.
Right? Like, and I guess it was B5 that was the biggest problem for KT in Game 1, like picking Rakan into Poppy, and then we saw just how terribly that went. And then once again, you know, that Lee Sin coming in was really problematic. But Ezreal, Lucian, both of them banned away. Oftentimes you see a Lucian ban and you're like, Deft getting another Lucian ban. But nope, this one's for B2D. And Ashe and the Rumble, definitely bans that have to happen.
I do think that KT should ban the Azir again away from Faker for the same reasons we mentioned it in Game 2. It's just that simple. But then he might get Corki because they have first pick here. Let's see if this is going to be banned by T1 themselves.
I think allowing T1 to go for the Renekton... Okay, never mind. They're going to ban the Renekton themselves. So that means that KT probably need to ban something like the Azir, I think, has to go. Right?
I feel like I'm much more concerned about Faker's Azir than his Corki right now.
Yeah.
And even though the Lucian's banned, and that would be a great counter for BDD to play into it, I do think taking the Azir away feels Faker-specific, and that is what they're going to do. They might just leave us with that first pick Corki for T1, or they can go the Sejuani/Vi route here, play Vi Talia. But, you know, you have so much power in this first pick. That's why you chose blue side.
Yeah.
What are they going to go for? I mean, the Corki is what the meta slave does in this situation, right? And when T1 have followed the meta this season, it has not been as successful as when they follow the heart of T1, what the announcer earlier called a traditional T1 style, like what we saw in Game 1.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the Corki is not quite as bad as far as like Faker's recent champion pool, right? Like the Tristana really has been the one that people have been umming and ahhing about. I think the Corki is something that Faker has played very well for quite some time, even though not necessarily finding as much success with it. That's a blind Jace. Huh? All right, we're just going to do it again. This time with a Jace.
When the Jace is the one with the brushes, and he could sit in the brush and fire freely, it feels a lot better than firing into brushes without map control. So while Jace is somewhat risky as a blind pick, you know, Zeus is not known for his Malphite response. I don't know what he's going to play into this one. He might just pick a ranged champion once again.
I mean, the space already indicated it. I think it should be Brand. Nidalee, I don't think does the same thing.
Oh, you literally can't get value from spears because Pioshik will just press the shield before it hits every time.
I mean, this is still like, don't get me wrong, in the early game, if you play the Nidalee really effectively, you can just get in there and kill the Ivern and stuff like that. But even then, like, it's difficult. The guy just can like press the root caller button and then you sort of stay still for a while.
You need to have a matchup for this Corki and for your top lane where you feel like you have enough control so that Nidalee can actually be proactive early. K'Sante into Jace is definitely one where you can kind of weather the storm, but it is not going to be, or it shouldn't be, the K'Sante taking topside prio. Corki was also blind. We'll see what BDD's response is going to be here.
Has BDD been practicing the Zeri? Because they could theoretically go for a mid-Zeri angle. There's quite a few.
Mid Jace and top Mordekaiser. That's the answer.
Okay.
You know what? I was thinking about this right before the Hopper came through. I was like, you know what? I guess it's Jace mid because there's not really not a lot of AD champions that are left here you could play mid that you'd feel okay into the Corkias. The Jace is definitely one of them.
I seem to remember a game where there was a guy called 369 and he played Mordekaiser, and it was in a draft that was similar to this, and it was terrifying.
Yes.
We'll see whether Perfect can have a similar sort of performance, because Mordekaiser in the LPL, Mordekaiser in the LCK, very, very different. LPL Mordekaisers are just extremely good. We haven't found the same handle on it. I think Keen is the only one that's kind of got close, but we haven't found the success for the Mord so far here in the LCK. So let's see what Perfect can actually do. As Senna going to be banned away, and there is the Leona ban as well. I was going to say more Shadow Isles vibes, but Mordekaiser is Noxus, so I'm a bit silly.
This is the first time Kalista was left up by KT, and then it gets banned by T1, and it looked like they had a great angle to actually play Kalista here into the draft, and T1 are able to read that and take it away. So it's a tough call here. Zeri feels very good with all of the shielding that she will be able to receive here. And then they can save counter pick for support. So if it's not a threatening lane like a Caitlyn lane here for Guma Keria, then perhaps you end up playing the Lulu and then you have even more shielding to come through. But it will likely be based on what comes through here, because Caitlyn feels like it's probably the best bet to try to get some prio there bottom side. Maybe the Nidalee can play through this a little bit. Otherwise, you know, if you're really going for like a Draven Renata, you're going all in, you could do something like that. But the Caitlyn just seems pretty obvious here.
Yeah, a bit of pushing power. Let's see whether they stick to as much lane pressure as possible. Yeah, there it is. The Lux is going to come in. This means that T1 have zero range. There is, zero engage. There is no way for them to really start a fight outside of
K'Sante?
Just try and poke them, you know? And K'Sante flanks are certainly going to be the way, but T1 needs to control the neutral. They need to be able to land this poke and stop KT from doing what they want to do.
It's 100% a lane pick to grab this Lux, but it feels so terrible later on. I mean, also, like, she could use the singularity to see in the bushes. I guess that's
true.
Yeah,
there we go.
That's kind of a positive. There's not really much counterplay to that from KT Rolster, but
I thought you left all of your optimism in the last game, but you've got the optimism out for T1 here as well with this draft. And I don't mind it. Like, this is a poke comp, right? We've seen these work in the past. Frontline of just a K'Sante is a little bit of a worry.
Yeah, especially if this Jace can find any sort of angle, because normally when you're playing into Jace with a K'Sante, you can stand in front of the Jace and make it difficult. You can stand in front of your teammates and make it difficult for the poke to come through. But if you don't know where the Jace is standing because there's brushes, you don't have vision, then Jace finds these incredible accelerated shock blast angles and hits your Lux, or hits your Caitlyn, hits your mid laner, and then you're just at half health, and then you can't actually fight through the shields. So it's very impressive, again, what KT put together here. I think T1's answer was pretty interesting. Like, I don't think it's bad per se, but I feel like it is very risky and so reliant on that Nidalee getting ahead early, so reliant on that Caitlyn Lux lane getting massive advantages, which it should. In theory, one of the classic Zeri lane counters to push through and guarantee prio. Also the question of what Faker's form is going to look like on Corki today. You mentioned much better than his Tristana. This is game 3 of a very important series for both of these teams.
Yeah, I'm very interested in seeing what Perfect is going to look like on this Mordekaiser as well. Once again, it's the Ivan for Pyosik. See how he goes as we jump into the Rift for game 3. I feel like the T1 fan chants are extraordinarily loud, but you can hear the emotion and the desperation from KT fans every time, and it's fantastic. As BDD, he has played this Jace in the past, quite a few times actually. I think, you know, him and Showmaker, 2 examples of players that really do like it, Chovy as well. As far as like just dominating lane with this mid Jace, often large CS gaps and things like that. We'll see how it does into the Corki here. Faker taking the fleet footwork just to try and make sure that he is as comfortable in this lane as possible.
I do really feel like the Jace spikes a little bit faster and a little bit harder than the Corki in some of those early skirmishes. You know, not necessarily at Grubs, but like first Herald, sometimes the first and second Dragon, you do end up getting a ton of value out of his burst damage. And BDD has been so good at not only laning on this pick, but winning big fights early for his squad. And the all-in power is there to the skies, coming in and just blowing up a single target. And if, you know, Zeus isn't there, for example, on a Dragon fight, there is no real front line here. And Faker can offer a lot of damage back with the Gatling gun. Remember, this is nerfed Corki.
Deft, I don't know whether you want to be there, buddy. Well, there's the Singularity going to come on through, and there is the Peacemaker as well. Not looking very peaceful, as Deft is going to start drinking a potion very early.
This is how you abuse an Ivern with bot lane prio with a Nidalee. This is a good sign for this draft, as T1 definitely know how to Nidalee. They have their licenses, and Pyosik is going to be set significantly behind here as a result of it.
Oh, yeah.
And this bottom lane is going to be constantly under threat.
Yeah, Pyosik now going to move on over. Will be able to start off his Krug camp. Should be able to at least, you know, take his top side pretty comfortably. But 3-0 for Pyosik on the Ivern. And it's kind of interesting, right? Because Pyosik spends some time in North America. I feel like North America actually plays a bunch more Ivern than we do here in the LCK. As Deft is just looking to try and stop Owner from being annoying. But he's still going to take a spear for his troubles.
And this does get BD and Faker involved as well briefly. And nothing really comes of this, just a Gromp delay, but now Deft is not able to farm the experience or the gold of the minions, which is pretty problematic.
He wasn't going to be able to anyway, but now he's definitely not able to.
Yeah, now he's like not able to even be near his turret. This is going to cause a bit of prio in mid.
Well, Pyosik going to come on over. Let's see what they can actually get done here. The flash has to be burnt. Faker going to get himself out of there as now T1. Let's see whether they can actually kill Beryl, who's going to flash the Q. That's nicely done. Spear going to connect there onto Deft. And already, we're seeing the power of this bottom lane. And
it's very strong, yeah.
This is something that, oh my goodness, okay. That's another one. As somehow, Beryl's going to be able to weave in the hook, but still, even as the hook is connecting, there is more poke being landed, and Deft is just continuing to have the most horrible time. The low range of this Zeri, a huge problem. And yeah, this is probably one of the best lanes that Gumushi Carrier have played together. Dates back quite some time.
Now, you know, this is a lane that, as you mentioned, they played together a lot. They played at Worlds, for example. Everyone remembers the Lux ban in Game 5 of 2022.
Yeah.
But the power of it outside of lane is often directly tied to how much you get done in lane and how much you can put the enemy AD carry down. Because there's that power trough as BDD.
Whoa, he's just flashing in, looking for Faker here. Can he find the autos? And there's the last one. Picks it up, doesn't die to the turret. Thank you very much, Pyosik, for the help, but that is first blood going to KT.
And he went electrocute this game. It's very powerful, very classic old school, but like I said, the burst and the potential of the early game picks is quite high, as now they're going to try to trade something back here in bottom.
Yeah, KT like, oh, not again. Why does this have to happen? As you can see, even in the mid lane, they're just going for a little bit of a reset. But T1 with full control of this bottom side of the map. Spear going to miss for now. And by the way, we are very, very close to 4,000 assists for BDD as well. Just need one more, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, he got the kill for that first blood. So next one, gonna have to be an assist.
Yeah, next time.
Deft made it to level 3, guys. It's not that over.
It's kind of over down here, but there are still other pressure points, including mid, which we already saw. And this CS gap is pretty massive, but we have seen bigger recoveries than this. It's just going to take a lot of effort as, once again, BDD putting heavy pressure onto Faker here. Already has that serrated Dirk, so you know, if they spend all of their resources trying to shut Deft out of the game, it will eventually come to be an issue that this Jace is very large. But if you compare BDD's advantage over Faker to Guma's over Deft, you won't be happy if you're a KT fan.
No. It's 18 to 50. It's kind of absurd. Ona going to move in, look for the spear onto BDD. Is Pyosik going to need to shield him? BDD just able to get the kill. Still, it's answered this time as the jungle is now facing off Pyosik without too much firepower. And Deft continuing to get zoned. So yeah, I mean, BDD did have that kill. There's a hook onto Carrier there at the same time as Beryl just desperately trying to do anything that he can. But he is now the one burning down. Deft trying to get anything done as that's a last auto, and that is a dead Beryl in the 2v2. And T1 just demonstrating that this bottom lane, they still got it.
I mean, Beryl tried his best to try to get any sort of space here for Deft, but is unfortunately for him unsuccessful. Good spacing there from Guma on the follow-up autos. Takes Beryl out. Deft left alone here. At least he's the one who survives. At least maybe he can get some of that critical farm. Now, BDD picked up a second kill here in mid. It's not an assist, but it is big gold for him, so definitely a trade up. The kill goes over to a Nidalee, who uses gold better than an Ivern would have, as we'll watch this again.
줘봐.
Yeah, he's like, give me the shield, give me the shield.
Yeah, give me the shield, give me the bush. And down he goes. This is the first pick. I don't know if we'll get the second skirmish. Probably not.
나이스.
Yeah.
Yep.
진짜 미쳤다 형. 쉴드 한 번만 더.
You're so good. You're insane, basically. And then this play, the shield this time not quite enough to stop the Nidalee from killing him.
Yeah, BDD is human after all. And here on the bottom side of the map, yeah, Deft and Beryl continuing to have just a terrible time.
Yeah, and I mean, okay.
Oh, speaking of terrible times, to the skies is Faker. Yeah, hands off keyboard here.
It's okay, they've got a backup AD carry in mid. It doesn't matter that this area isn't real. The Corki is starting to be less real all the time.
Yeah, although the Corki does have a farm. Deft, unfortunately, not as lucky. Does not have a farm this game.
No, he doesn't. He might need to call his old friend Chovy and see if he can get something from him. He's got a bunch of alpaca farms around the world, but
yeah, he does. We need to get to New Zealand. The old memes is okay. Pyosik coming on in as Ona does proc the Conqueror here as now Carrier is looking to fight his old friend. Going to miss that one a lot though, as there's the flash out from Carrier, realizing that there's a lot of enemies coming. Ona taking a fair bit of damage here at the same time as Daisy getting amongst it.
And Deft, I mean, he is still massively behind, but what T1 have been able to gain from this is a pretty substantial amount of gold for their bottom lane, and they're trying to actually wipe this turret out. Looks like they will be successful on this wave, although the Ivern Brush makes this very frustrating, so maybe not quite.
Yeah. Oh god, all of the poke coming in. One more auto would have done it. There's a trap in the brush. Man, the brushes are actually making it more frustrating for KT, and they're being built by their jungler.
Yeah, this is really annoying to deal with, but they are keeping this turret alive for now.
I don't know whether this turret is really worth trying to save, because there are 3 members of T1 down here, and the extendo beam not really going to help out there. As okay, Root Caller does come on through. Kamiushi is going to get the heal though from the Primal Surge, and they try to do their best to take down the cannon, but that is not going to work.
So how well Caitlyn can utilize this gold is going to be the real question, because 40 CS down right now at 9 minutes, it feels like your life is over. It's definitely donezo. It feels like the game is over. They're making some good plays mid. Beryl, insane hook here, as that's Faker's third of the game death. But if we get to a game state where KT could stabilize, right? I mean,
we just saw the replay.
Yeah.
Well, the Valkyrie going to get him out of here this time around.
Look at the gold here. He is sitting on 4,000 gold, by far the largest in the game. Well, BDD is also sitting at 4,000 gold, but again, when you look at the deficit, 1,600 is pretty big. But if we get to 25 minutes and he's still 30 CS ahead, that means much less later on. That whole turret he picked up means much less later on because of the strengths of KT's composition. So if you're a KT fan, don't feel good about the start to this game, but know that there is still hope. If you can win one team fight and you get map control, you set those Ivern brushes, maybe there's a world where you come back. But the Ivern is also massively behind at this point, isn't going to be offering the same sort of fast utility that we saw in Game 2. Deft is just trying to find money anywhere he can get it. He's like, there's a turret over here. This is where I want to be. Just need to be able to get some minions.
And it's going to be hard because Gumayusi Carrier also moved up towards his top side. And this 1v2 is not one that he's going to be too psyched about. Goshik is going to be over here. Haste and Hold does come on through. Trigger Seed not quite there in time.
And it's interesting how Pioshik has basically become the support in this game, and Beryl is just trying to get BDD ahead. He's like, no,
he's like the jungler, yeah.
Yeah, he's the jungler now. And Pioshik is trying to keep turrets alive so that Guma doesn't get more money, and also so Deft can get as much money as he can here.
Ooh, Spear not going to connect on to Beryl. But like you say, I mean, this is just going to be more and more waves pushed in. BDD, very aggressive, understandably so. He's on a killing spree right now, as there's the flash hook, gets the flash out of Gumayusi. Beryl is just unfazed.
No, he doesn't care.
Not even a little bit. BDD going to turn up. Ona is able to secure that one grub. And so that is 2 apiece here. KT looking to try and lock down their third. And, oh, I thought that Spear was actually going to be able to pick that one up. But good smite there from Goshik.
You can see T1 just aren't confident to fight this right now. They don't have any vision.
Oh, okay. Light Binding does come on in. Peacemaker down as well as he's just dead. The final spark is going to be exactly that. And Beryl, this is the power of the poke composition being bared down right on top of him.
Really good punish there from T1, but KT still get the grubs, and the fact that they were able to control most of that fight until that binding landed gives you a little bit of hope that maybe they can pull something together here. But it is still looking so tough. Deft still 30 CS behind here, still hiding in a brush under a turret. Even Daisy needed here for him to just farm minions.
Yeah, and it's more plates. That's 2 of them going down. Beryl has respawned as Daisy comes out, going to get the knock-up onto the Lux. As now Gumayusi needs to be a little bit careful. Pioshik getting down lower and lower. Daisy going to be destroyed. KT still searching for more. Hook is going to be avoided. Good sidestep. And now it's an honest 3v3 as the poke is starting to be turned around onto KT.
Merc Tread's done here for BDD, opting into this one instead of the plated steel caps we normally see into Corki, just because Faker is pretty irrelevant this time around. Carry is quite large, and he wants to be able to have some extra tenacity so he can really be the carry, because he needs to go into point-blank range to actually win some of these mid-game team fights, and those bindings are going to be super frustrating to deal with. If Beryl doesn't get hit by this, then they win the objective and lose nothing, but it's just a really good snipe there from Carrier. Picks up a lot of extra gold, so this bottom lane continues to be so far ahead. Still a bit of a hole in the mid lane, but Faker only 10 CS behind. He has a farm, as you said, and
yeah,
Deft is still struggling to get the foundation of his. But the main carry in this game is going to have to be BDD, and it is going to be KT somehow, some way trying to wrestle that prio away. Because as we saw in the Grub fight, if they have it, T1's comp can do very little.
Yeah. We'll need to see whether KT can actually get to a point where they're actually capable of utilizing the power of this composition, right? I think the Mordekaiser can be pivotal against compositions like this that really do need to have a man advantage as Beryl. Hello, friend. That is going to be loose in Singularity, finding a bit of damage, but not able to get the light binding, and so therefore Beryl will survive. But certainly always looking for angles is Beryl this game. Koshik going to turn up. And Deft 91, so it's still 40 CS. So like you were talking about, I mean, this is about the deficit that it's been the entirety of the game. Extendo Beam coming forward. And Deft just doing his very best. This time underneath the turret doing okay. As the net not going to connect onto the Zeri and Ona. Now looking for BDD. I don't know about that one, as BDD is very scary. That Shock Blast, my God, the damage. That is a 3 kills Jace. You cannot be here as, okay, there is the flash away from the light binding. I don't think it was going to hit, but BDD did not want to take his chances.
Big risk there from Owner, though. It did require a lot of help there. Still ends up getting away with his life, has the heal, and will be okay, but you could see the potential of what could have gone wrong there. Good flash from BDD. And we're starting part 2, this time on the Herald, but this time T1 a lot more control than they had the last.
Yep, Ace and Hole going to come on through as there is the depth charge onto the Nidalee. He's burning, but so's Beryl, and there's Faker picking up his first kill. T1 now with a big advantage, but not necessarily in the health bars. Still, the Rift Herald should be secured here. And T1 just making this win lane, win game composition work for them.
And the final spark was massive there as well, ripping through those health bars, making it so that there was no way KT could try to follow up and punish those low health bar champions on the side of T1. And that's the Herald going over. And T1's lead is just becoming so big at this point. Sure, it was a big ultimate from Deft, and yes, he has high damage output, but Guma's got an IE. They have a relatively farmed Lux as well. Does have Zazax in the inventory and completed, so that's some extra burst damage as well.
Yeah, Shirelli is coming in relatively soon as there's some redemption damage, and the flash forward from Beryl. Gumayushi, he does not have his flash available. Root Caller comes down, there's the hook. BDD's like, give me my fourth, and he'll be able to pick that one up. Deft, a little bit sad that he doesn't get the kill. It would be pretty good for KT to give the Zeri something, but still staying within that 40 CS gap range.
Yeah.
And now finally has an item.
A little bit of shutdown gold there, and I mean, this is, unfortunately for KT, a bit of a bridge too far. Beryl's able to block the Ace and the whole damage, and then they go straight in onto the Nidalee, but he flashes away. Beryl takes all that final spark damage, and unfortunately that is, with the combo down for BDD, not really much else they could do. Redemption to start this one off, and then Beryl flashes here to get the root and tries to hold Guma in place. And then, yeah, the slow here from Pyoshik's Glacial Augment is going to spell disaster along with the root there. And Beryl, he's trying to do it again a bit early. Okay, I was going to say a bit early. BDD needs a little bit more time. He doesn't have teleport just yet.
Yeah, just having a bit of a Hex Flash time.
So we had accidental Funnolution. We might be looking at accidental Funnel Jace in this game. I don't know if he's going to be able to get it done against all the Fed members of T1, but he's trying.
I think Griffin actually tried that one too.
Oh.
Back in the day. It also definitely didn't work. But look, it's just, you know, sometimes finally it needs to get some redemption. As here in the mid lane, some plants go up, and so does Daisy, and Beryl, he's on the prowl once again. Gumayushi gonna be in trouble here as Perfect is just gonna put him into the death realm. What are you gonna do about it? And the answer is die. And then a whole bunch of stats now go over to this Mordekaiser. Hooks connecting, but the final spark is just going to end them. The all-out comes through from Zeus, and now the flash forward Deft smells blood in the water and wants to get some sort of kill here as Zeus getting himself out. BDD presses W, but I don't know whether they're going to be able to quite find it as finally the kill comes in. The answer's there from KT. The kills are even. It's a bloodbath, but I don't even necessarily know who's in the best position to win.
I mean, when you look at how these fights have been going, it's like Keria is doing the most damage.
Yeah.
Guma's doing a little bit, right? And this time just ulted out. You mentioned, hey, if you have the man advantage, you win these, and it's Riftmaker on the Mordekaiser, so he actually ends up winning these duels quite well. Perfect blast coning his way in, flashes for the ultimate here, puts him in the Death Realm, and then look at Guma. There's just nothing he can do. Perfect doesn't even have to shield until he gets out of the ultimate, and they can just kind of casually walk back. As Faker shows up super late, but just gets instantly by Beryl, and then this final spark is massive, but without it, this is a huge win for KT. It still is ultimately a big win for them as Deft is starting to kind of sort of be relevant in this game. I don't know if we should watch the whole thing, but anyway, they end up killing Zeus here as well. In the meantime, the mid turret goes down, and that is a big tool gone for KT to mitigate some of the aggressive pressure of this Caitlyn as she's trying to get out of her trough.
Yeah, exactly. And KT, without an outer turret in mid lane, it is going to be even more difficult, right, for them to get towards these neutral objectives. And I think, like, Perfect being able to park himself in the banana brush and actually get access to Gumayushi is a big part of this. And it's something that T1 are going to try and desperately stop from happening as this game goes on.
Look at this gold here in turrets. 3,000 nearly for T1, all in that turret, in the bottom lane, and the plates, of course, top side. Then they got the turret mid.
It does mean the standing gold argument is a decent one, but the problem is that if the map control continues the way it is, then KT will never be able to actually cash that in.
You say that, but I mean, I do agree with you. It's tough for them to get map control, but they keep getting it on these objectives and then taking these fights that are way closer than they should be. In T1, I mean, the fact that last fight was so close is a worrying sign. Now, I don't think Perfect is going to get the flash ult onto Guma a second time in this game, but it does make you wonder if T1, will be able to crack this composition if KT could stabilize ever in this game. Pick up some of that standing gold you're talking about, get map control for even just a second, because if they do get that map control, as unlikely as it seems, it feels like this is a winnable game for them. I'm not going to predict it, but never count this squad out, because we've seen already some crazy stuff in this game. BDD is extremely powerful, already hit that 2-item spike. Muramana is transformed.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. But I think that if T1 can keep playing their game plan, then that sort of standing gold argument isn't quite as valuable.
If you can't break the turrets, you can't get.
They have to do the hard thing first.
Yes.
Is what I'm saying. And that is going to be winning more team fights here for KT. And I think this gentleman that we can see on our screen right now is going to be a big part of that. This Jace is just massive in this game.
Collector is now done for Guma as well, to just sitting on a Shiv and a Zeal. For Deft, at least the Shiv lets him farm better, and that 30 CS deficit is just going to kind of be permanently there, but he will eventually get a second item. He will eventually be a little bit more relevant. It's BDD that T1 need to worry about.
Yep.
And they also, again, you pointed this out in draft, which is one of the biggest issues, is they didn't have any engage. And if KT just sit on a bush, then it's really tough. And if they can slow play it and Jace can hit a few shock blasts before the fight goes off, then suddenly Deft just presses R and he cleans up the team fight. It's very easy, obviously, to itemize here as Zeus into this comp. Just wants to become very tanky, wants to be a big frontline for this Jace. And he has a big role to play in how they win these fights, because he is going to be the one who absorbs those shock blasts.
Oh, yeah.
In an ideal world here for T1.
Yeah, Faker also now has the Muramana transformation. 1, 3, and 3, and it was looking really dire for Faker in the beginning of this game, but has since been able to keep up in farm and has made it to that 2-item spike that we talk about so many times for the Corki. So not necessarily fully out of the woods, but certainly feeling better than the way Deft is at this point in time, sitting on, like you mentioned before, just the Zeal. All right, going to not necessarily find the target as Carrier just explodes. Beryl's going to be traded, but now BDD, he's on the prowl. The all-out angle is going to be there for Zeus, and he drags the Jace into the team. Gorgeously played from the man in the top lane, and that is going to give T1 the edge.
Perfect ult from Zeus, the angle through the edge of the Baron pit. He gets the perfect diagonal there, and T1 back in the fight, because now KT without the Jace cannot continue to contest. And after Carrier got caught there, it looked like maybe this was a winnable team fight for KT, but it's Zeus who shows up the perfect time. Flash out from BDD, but it's not enough to save him as he's yoinked across the wall there, abducted.
That is so much money as well. I think he was sitting on another bounty. So it's exactly the person that KT didn't want dying in that moment. Moonstone now completed for Pyoshik, though. They're getting more and more items put together, but we credited them for a great composition.
Great route here from Pyoshik, and then Barrel follows up on it. His life is traded, but also, 4/5 of the health bar of owner is also gone. Let's watch this.
제이스 보신다?
A wraparound.
제이스. 야, 모델 궁극을 다 있어,
Beautiful
조심해.
angle.
So clean, so calm in the calms. Like, I would say a bit frantic, but very, very much like, when you look at his play, his movement there, he knew the angle he could potentially find. He was able to find it, pulls him out, and Runins is done for Deft. It is a very big spike for the Zeri. Yep, but again, it feels like miracles are required here. We keep seeing picks, we keep seeing punish, because Carey has to go so far up to try to set up these bindings to then maybe allow for a blow-up, allow for the spear to connect. Need to play a little bit more cautiously, I feel, because there's no role in which KT should be able to wrestle back control, but every fight has looked relatively close. Like Zeus' heroics are why they were able to actually trade up, or at least trade one back. I mean, with the shutdown, massive trade up for T1.
I do still feel like it's going to be hard. Like, if you imagine T1's composition, like, trying to do a Baron, right? Like, KT have so much engage, so many of these angles to set up to try and answer, that it can be quite difficult, as they are doing the Dragon. It's very easy to do Dragon when there's actually no one around.
Infernal again.
And that's a high value one. So 2 Drakes going over to T1 as Final Spark going to be thrown towards Perfect. They want to be able to get this bounty gold for taking down the turret. There's the ace in the hole, and Def takes half of his health bar. That hurts a lot.
Yeah.
Rapid Fire Cannon going to be the 3rd one here for Gumayushi.
Definitely a huge spike for him once he has that. I feel like that's the moment where we're like, okay, he's well and truly out of the trough. He had a massive gold lead, but you still are Caitlyn, and it's still kind of awkward to play out the mid game. He was given the mid turret as well, so has been really playing quite well with the advantages he had. Did get ulted by Perfect that one time, but now once he has the RFC, he can just one-shot people basically, and he's going to be running around the map, and if he finds Deft is going to have a hard time winning that duel, even with a barrier.
Oh yeah.
And we've seen this game seemingly be so much closer, I feel like, than it needed to be. And Perfect now has his 2nd item as well, so he can use the dash cannon to close the gap on Guma, maybe even Faker as well, or just pull Zeus out of the fight so the Shock Blast value could be high. I see so many angles here for KT, and while they ended up losing out on this area lane into this Caitlyn, which felt so obvious, it feels like otherwise their draft is so robust that there are ways back in. Like, I keep having to tell everyone that it's not over because it looks very over, but I don't trust yet, Atlas.
Yeah, no, I don't know either. And it's I think a product of what we've seen from both of these teams recently. We've seen genius and we've seen failure, and we just don't know what's going to happen in any given moment.
And Barrel's confidence this game is just off the charts. Despite the deficit, he has just not given up. He's always fishing for the angles.
Oh yeah.
And he's been pretty successful. Yeah, he's 0-5-3, but he's gotten really some really critical moments for KT.
I'm just looking for the next one, seeing whether they can find another angle. BDD, of course, he's going to be the main character.
Getting 2 BDD in these fights is the tricky part. You know, they had the Zeus Cassante engage on him last time around, but how do you close the gap on this Jace? Maybe you just simply weather the storm and have the Caitlyn do the work, you front to back it.
Yeah.
Because trying to set up an engage or a pick is so challenging.
Oh, Carrier going to be able to find a bit of a combo. There's the spear to land as well. Beryl is just dead. They find the pick, they set up the vision, and they're going to look for a Baron off the back end of it.
Area has been so essential in finding these bindings to actually punish this aggressive positioning from Beryl.
Well, there is going to be vision going into this Baron pit. Pioshik does have his flash available. Can he be the hero is the question. The answer is no. Zeus just said, get out of here. The Baron's going to be secured. Daisy's going to be taken down first. Pioshik is destroyed, and T1 just snowballed the fight so beautifully. Yes, Perfect is able to kill a Lux, but I think Carrier did his job this game. Faker going to be able to lock down that kill. It's now 12-8. The gold lead is skyrocketing.
And it's going to get even worse. I mean, the game is not going to end off of this Baron very likely unless KT make a big mistake, but I think it is essentially now over. You know, I was saying I wasn't sure, I wasn't feeling confident that they were going to be able to close this one out with no engage, no traditional engage, no pick potential unless Carrier finds a binding. But he keeps finding them. He found that one on the barrel. They get a Baron. KT absolutely get dunked on in the fight. And then Baron is up, and it's already 3,000 gold. The power play, 4,000 here with this turret going down in inner and top side. And now I feel like there is just too much of a lead. There is no way to come back for KT. This was certainly one of the picks of all time as they just press all the buttons on him. Owner tosses in the spear, ace in the hole.
The ace in the hole was just there to celebrate, I think.
And then when you see this, you're like, okay, well, maybe Pioshik gets in. No, Zeus actually says, no, I'm going to flash, push him out, then, you know, abduct him. And there's no jungle angle here. It's not going to happen. BD goes in on this Cassante, but there's so much follow-up damage from Guma. It looks like Zeus is actually two-shotting him, but it's Guma over the wall just popping him. And yes, Perfect does get the flank and takes Carrier out, but his sacrifice was legendary, and it's probably what's going to win T1 this telecom war.
Yep. Hook is going to miss here as T1 are just going to bear down on this inhibitor. Zeus says thanks for the gap closed as Perfect's going to pull him in. That is Beryl dead for the 7th time this game. And KT just looking like there is absolutely nothing that they can do. We praised them for the draft, but things went so wrong in the early game. There was no way for them to utilize it in any way, shape, or form. Nexus turret's going down. T1 going to get some revenge against KT. They're going to move to 4th place in the LCK, and they're going to send KT to 7th with a victory here. Deft is trying to kite his way out of this one, but he's not going to be able to. He wanted to kite his way out of the early game. This is the way that he gets out of it, and it's by a defeat at the hands of T1. They're going to be able to take this one here in the Telecom War today.
I think teams forget about the Guma, Keria, Caitlyn, Lux lane, and it comes through. They play through it, and it absolutely unlocks the Nidalee. There is just nothing that Pyosik can do. He loses his farm. He's trying to put brushes up so Deft can get minions, but then he's losing even more farm. Found himself way behind. Deft is out of the game, and even though BDD put on a masterclass of Jace, that alone with the draft and the brushes and the cool Mordekaiser is not going to be enough to stop what was a massive deficit in the bottom lane. You can't lane swap into a Caitlyn either. It's just not going to happen. There was almost no way they could have done this. Maybe it's not played as well by Keria and Guma, but this team has built so many success stories with this composition. I was 8-1 here in the LCK alone. Massive, massive duo for them. And T1, they're back, right? They showed up in a big way. Yes, Game 2 was a little bit weird. Game 2 was a little bit of a funky draft, but I think the other two games really do convince you that, as Guma's saying here, T1 can find that consistency. They often stumble, but they usually get right back on the horse.
Yeah, I think this Game 3 was just utter domination. I still think that some of the drafting tendencies, some of the things that we did see in this series as well, like the game number 1 was so beautifully crafted, right? But that's the classic T1 composition. KT then showed that they can sort of dissect it, but it was when T1 headed over to the blue side. KT didn't have the plan for that, and this just wasn't enough. Like Faker, once again, having a bit of a rough game up against BDD. Good early game. I think the early game from Perfect was kind of fine as well, but Beryl just getting chain picked off over and over again. And this T1 comp, if it has control of the map, you just win. Yeah. Because you can set up the vision, you can land the poke, and then you have a man advantage, you take objective. If you don't have that, it would have been an utter disaster, but Keria really just managing to find the angles just enough throughout this mid-game.
His ults, his picks, I mean, this one, unfortunately, was him trying to fish for just that and gets punished. And it was moments like these that made me feel like, okay, wow, I mean, Keria is so squishy, BDD is so large, he has so much lethality, it's really tough. I thought perhaps maybe KT could stabilize and then get control, and then there would just be nothing T1 could do, but Zeus played so heroically as well into this composition, so confidently made all the right choices. I think there's a pretty good argument for Zeus to get POG, but I voted for Keria because the bottom lane was half his doing, and then his picks in the mid to late game and his final sparks around big critical objectives were why BD wasn't able to actually carry Deft back into a winning position. Such a good series though, Atlas.
Yeah, and Telecom Wars, they just have a habit of delivering, right? That's just how it kind of goes. The last one, a little bit of a weird one, but this one was back and forth. Kind of thought that maybe it'd just be that 2-0 for T1 after what we saw in the first game. Thankfully, KT were able to give us the full 3-gamer, but this one honestly didn't really feel like KT were as in it as T1 were. They were the one playing the game, and KT were the one trying to figure out how they can also have a chance to play the game, and didn't quite discover that.
Yeah, in games 1 and 3, you know, Perfect wasn't allowed to play game 1, and Def was not allowed to play game 3.
Yeah.
T1's pressure point lanes always have to be respected, and perhaps the teams will think twice about picking Zeri when the Caitlyn Lux lane is up, because it just did not look like Def and Beryl could do anything here. And the Nautilus pick, while he tried to kind of hook his way back into it, just felt pretty flat in this one.
It certainly did. I want to also give a shout out to Owner. I think that Owner played the early game exceptionally well, making sure that he could stay into the enemy jungle throughout the majority, always was ahead in farm. I think he had like a lead of about 80 CS or something like that towards the end, so really, really well played there. But that is enough from us. Let's throw it over to the space to break down the Telecom War T1 victory.
Thank you very much, guys. This is Dear for the POG interview translation, joined by Owner and Keria on the side of T1, who just took KT Roaster down in the Telecom War. Congratulations!
네, 오너 선수 KT에게 1라운드
Owner.
복수를 제대로 해줬습니다.
You got your revenge against KT from round 1. How do you feel?
끊어서 다행이라고 생각을 하고 있고 또 오랜만에
I'm just so relieved that we're able to end our losing streak and being able to get POG after a long time. It makes me feel great. And Carrie, how do you feel? I'm so happy to win against KT. I feel like I almost forgot about how it feels to win, so I'm so glad that we're able to secure today's victory. And Carria, you came out on top in a close 3-game series, so what did KT give you the most trouble with? KT's bot duo happens to be very good at the game, and I think we just try to make sure that they don't get ahead and try to deny them as much as possible. And Owner, during the period of your losing streak, Koma said that practice is going well, but the result isn't showing. So what is something that you guys focused on improving to perform better on stage? I feel like we all have individual skills and abilities, and we are all skilled players, so honestly we just really wanted to trust and have faith in each other and practice as normally. And this was your first time playing in patch 14.14, and it looked like you guys are super prepared for your draft, so what was the process like? Compared to the previous patch, there are a lot of changes in the champions, but the overall matchups are actually pretty similar in the end. So I think we really try to focus on what's good in the bot lane and try to pick out all the good picks in the bot lane. And Owner, in Game 1, you guys started... Well, actually, Game 1 started with your Poppy and ended with your Poppy. Your early game setup was on point. You took care of all the top dives and took all the grubs. Walk us through how you set up. You know, this was a pick that we really wanted to set up so that we can get some early advantages. And so, whether we had to dive or cover and counter the top dive, I think we really tried to make sure that we don't get behind. So what was the feedback after Game 2? After the loss in the grub fight, I feel like it just really snowballed really fast. So instead of any specific feedback, we just really wanted to focus on winning Game 3 and just play better. And carry out in Game 3, despite the Jace being a big threat early, you guys evened out on global gold. So what was the game plan? You know, in the end, we just really told ourselves we need to be responsible and accountable for our own plays. So we just tried to make sure that we maintain our plays and not get behind Jace. And in Game 3, we also got the Guma Carria Duo Classic, the Caitlyn Lux. And against Seri Nautilus, you really can't waste a lot of time. So what was your game plan? I feel like... Yeah, honestly, Caitlyn Lux... Against Caitlyn Lux, you can't really utilize Ivern very well, and I feel like the enemy probably kind of forgot about this potential of us playing this comp, so I think it just really worked well on them. So, it looks like this is such a classic. Is your classic comp simply timeless? Yeah, it happens to do really well with the 9-win and 1 loss, so I guess you could say that. And Carria, you have added 2 more champions to your pool this summer. You've played 15 unique champions so far, so is there any more left? Honestly, I didn't really realize that I played that many different champions, so yeah, I don't know if there's any more left. But we're certainly looking forward to more unique picks. And Carria, it looks like we caught you be a little disappointed that it wasn't a unanimous POG vote with the 2 jungle votes. Well, first of all, just given that honestly Owner got 2 votes, although he did really well, but you know, I also was a little hopeful that it would be unanimous because I did play well. What are your thoughts, Owner? You know, Carria did expect that unanimous votes. So what a bummer that he didn't get that, but I'm sure he'll have another opportunity in the future to get that unanimous POG. Now that T1 has put an end to the losing streak, it's time to stack some wins. So what can the fans expect from you? Any shout out for them, owner? Now that we ended the losing streak, we really want to put in our best and everything to start a winning streak. So thank you so much for your support. And Carrier, now that we have put an end to the losing streak, I want to make sure that we start our winning streak and keep it up. Thank you so much for your support as well. And that's the end of the interview from owner and Carrier, and back to the space. Thank you.